Hello, everyone. I'm Aldo Gandia. About 7 months ago, Danny Shimon and I had an idea for this season's draft on tap, which was we would evaluate, or he would evaluate, all of the top prospects, and then we would work our way to a mock draft on the eve of the actual NFL draft. We knew it was a tall order. And so that's why we sought somebody to help with the evaluation process. Danny and I talked to a number of people, and we decided that Neil Stopchinski was the best guy for the job. And he's proved to be the best guy for the job. He's been outstanding, has been Danny, and we're finally to that night. Danny Shimon and Neil Stopchinski are here. There they are here to help conduct this Bears mock draft based on their evaluation of players, based on their advice, based on everything that we've been talking about over the last some 20-some shows I believe we've done. It's been a blast all the way through, and tonight, hopefully, all of our hard work will materialize in a way that will please us all, particularly me, particularly these guys, and hopefully the fans who have been watching along with us. Guys, how are you, Danny? You look like you're really pumped and ready to go.
Yeah, I'm excited. Like I said, this has been the, we've been working up to this day here, this night, in terms of, doing the mock draft and and on the eve of the actual NFL draft, and hopefully give our listeners and our fans, kind of an inside view of what's going on, tomorrow night during this time, between Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy and their staffs. So I'm excited. I'm pumped. I always love doing mock drafts, especially the way we have it set up today. I think it's going to be a special treat for all of our listeners. Just a reminder to all of them, if you have any questions, just, pop in your questions and we'll try and, get them answered as soon as we can. But we're going to have some decisions to make. Well, actually, Aldo, the GM, is going to have some decisions to make, and Neil and I are going to give him our advice. We may be, pounding the table and all this stuff, but soon enough we will go ahead and let Aldo make the picks.
Look at Neil. Somebody named Narco Cop says Danny knows his stuff. Do you think he's talking about the draft or about drugs?
Jesus. I don't know. Danny, you could leaving something out of your bio there for us.
I'm here to talk draft, man. So I'm talking about his draft tonight. I'm not talking about anything else.
That's funny. Neil, how psyched up are you, brother?
Man, happy National Superhero Day, guys. I trust that Danny is wearing his Superman underwears tonight. But more importantly, it is NFL Draft Eve, and that jacks me straight the hell up for all the reasons possible. I'm ready to go, man. It's going to be a fun night. Let's just get into it.
Yep. Well, it's funny that you say Superhero Day, because I learned about that earlier today on our Bar Down Blackhawk Talk show, that today was Superhero Day. And so I wanted to start the show by asking you guys, who is your superhero in this draft? Who is the one player that you consider the absolute best in this draft? I'll start with you, Neil, since you reminded me it's Superhero Day. Who's the one guy you say, this guy is a surefire, can't bust superhero. He's going to be a star in the NFL.
Man, that is a tough question. I mean, if I look at my top 10 on this list of, top 100 guys, it's really, really hard not to go after a guy like Rashawn Slater, a guy that is just basically a Swiss Army knife offensive lineman that will come in probably hitting the ground running day one, intelligent as hell, athletic as hell, played left tackle for Northwestern, projects also to, left guard, can play center. He's a guy that really amps me up from offensive line side of things. Defensively, a guy like, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is just a defensive weapon, right? And in terms of weapons, on the offensive side of things, a weapon, Kyle Pitts. He doesn't have a position. He's just a weapon. So both of those two guys are, I think, immediate impact players on each side of the ball. You don't really have a position for him. You put him out there and let him go make plays.
Mm-hmm. Danny, who's your superhero?
Yeah, I got a ton of them, right? But I can go by position, but we'll just go offense and defense for now. For offense, Kyle Pitts is close to being the best player in this draft. The term unicorn, it's thrown out when you describe this kid. And again, a guy that big, almost 6'6", with that type of reach, the ability to adjust to the ball with body control, the ability to to extend away from his frame and reel in the catch. The guy, he's too fast for linebackers. He's too big for safeties. This guy is going to be someone that's going to be hard to cover in the NFL and runs a 4.4 40. So I think he's got, basically superstar written all over him on the offensive side. And Jamar Chase isn't far behind him either for me. In terms of the defensive side, I like Jock a lot, but I think Micah Parsons has a chance to be special in terms of linebacker. He's got to be in a right fit. I don't know. I'm not sure if he's a middle linebacker. He might be best suited as an outside will linebacker. A guy just kind of let him, use his athletic ability, go out there, chase, and make plays on the football. He's a guy that I like a lot, and like a dark horse guy that I like in terms of the cornerback position is Asante Samuel Jr. I think this kid's going to have this chance to be one of those players similar to Antoine Winfield Jr. last year, where he was taken in the second round and some were questioning his size and all that stuff. But I think Asante Samuel Jr. I think is a guy that's going to surprise a lot of people and be a real big time player for every team he goes to.
Neil, make sure you let Aubrey know that she's getting congratulations from the chat room tonight. So
absolutely appreciate you, Laura. I see you, buddy.
All right. So as a bookend to that question, who is the one guy or two guys that you really don't want anything to do with, that all of the draft experts on TV, radio, and print have been talking about, that you've heard, maybe Danny, Neil loves, but you don't, vice versa? I'll start with you on this one first, Danny. Who is somebody you don't want me to even consider drafting if he's available when we're up?
Well, if we're talking on offense, for me, it's got to be Christian Darrisaw. He's a guy that he's got the size, the measurables, the length. That he looks athletic. He's got the bendability. Plays with natural bend at left tackle. Looks like a natural left tackle. But for me, he just has a lot of lazy in his game. There's times where you put on his tape and he was out in front of the screen. He's kind of jogging, like you got to run, you got to get to your guy, get your second level, third level guy, and go ahead and lay him out. And he's a guy that's got the talent. I can see why teams like him, but I just have a bad feeling about him. And in terms of defense, it's Michigan's Kwity Paye. He's a guy that for me he's a tweener. They talk about, the twitch he's got, the athletic ability, and it's true, but he's a guy that's going to have to be in a 4-3 defense as a wide 9. Production wasn't there in Michigan. That to me is a telltale red flag, if you will. If you're so athletic, so twitchy, you only have 2 sacks. I expected him to be more productive there as well. So, not that he's a fit for the Bears, per se. But if I'm a team running a 4-3, if I'm not running a wide 9 or I don't have a plan for him, I kind of stay away from him as well.
What about you, Neil?
The two guys that have consistently been mocked to the Bears that have been driving me absolutely crazy has been Christian Darrisaw and Tevin Jenkins. And Christian Darrisaw, for all the reasons that I've been talking about ever since we did our offensive tackle show. Although I can remember that was December, I believe.
Yes, it was.
So for the past 5 months, I've been talking about how Christian Darrisaw drives me crazy with the way that he plays football. I don't want my offensive lineman jogging around the field, playing soft, being lazy, taking plays off. Now, I did watch the Boston College game today, and I don't know what it is about Christian Darrisaw versus Boston College. I don't know if he has a vendetta against private Jesuit universities, but he actually kind of halfway played his ass off. I was proud of the kid for the first time since watching his film. But and then I put on more film of the kid, and it's just the same old stuff, play after play. He gets trashed by average DBs, which is what I saw twice in that BC game. Amidst all the good stuff, I started actually sort of to get emotionally soft for the kid a little bit, and then he goes ahead and gets whipped over, hip thrusted over by a DB. So that's a no-go for me, 100%. Now here's the interesting thing about Christian Darrisaw that I can see is that if you put that kid in a phone booth, I think he can function decently. I think he's a kid that could potentially be a left or right guard. I'm not sure if he's ever snapped a ball in his life. I don't want to say that he's a projection at center, but I think he probably could be a guard. And that's because when I see this kid in space, it freaks me out. I think he's going to break the quarterback's neck, or get the quarterback's neck broken, I should say. So I would project him inside, and I would actually, step off of my stance of being a late, like 6th, 7th round pick, and maybe a 5th round developmental guy, because I think there's enough tools there. If you get him moving his feet on contact, that he could probably function inside, but on the edge, he's going to get a quarterback hurt. Number one. Number two, Tevin Jenkins. I love the kid from the standpoint of a dude that took Joseph Asai, arguably one of the top 5 edge rushers in his draft, and blocked him into the water coolers. That amps me up. And he finishes plays and he looks physical on tape and everything else. But the one glaring, thing that always sticks in my head that I've heard and I've never heard rebutted was the fact that the kid just doesn't like playing football. He does it because he's good at it. And that scares me. Because I think ultimately you're going to get a kid that's going to he's going to make enough money to go ahead and like retire on. He's going to get tired of it. And all of a sudden you have a 1st round pick that you paid all this money for, and 5, 6, 7 years down the road, you're going to be in the same spot looking for a bookend left tackle. So those are the 2 guys that have been projected to the Bears consistently, mocked at number 20. Again, I don't think we're going to be picking at 20, but have been consistently mocked at 20. That have been driving me crazy. I also think that going offensive tackle in round 1 anyways is a big mistake.
Interesting.
The other thing with Tevin Jenkins for me too is he gets stressed by speed as well on the outside. He plays right tackle. Now, he's played left tackle and right tackle at Oklahoma State, but he gets stressed a lot by speed. He's a guy I think could also be kicked inside and probably be a better guard than he is tackle. So that's something to keep in mind with him as well. But yeah, it's something, like I said, the Bears interior, I think that those 3, center and the 2 guards, I think they're kind of solidified now with the players we have there. Tackles where we need. And like I said, I think those 2 guys, if anything, I would not want to see those guys, coming here to at least at number 20, but those are 2 guys that really, I feel like are really being overvalued in my opinion.
100%.
Well, it is.
Whoa!
There you go.
Pick is in.
First pick coming in.
Is in, and we know, of course, who it is. Trevor Lawrence, the quarterback, is going to the Jacksonville Jaguars. Danny, this guy has superstar written all over him. I think you said in the past that he reminds you of Peyton Manning. There's no doubt that he's deserving of the number 1 pick, although none of you guys chose him as your Superman player. Do you think he's got Superman capabilities?
The thing about Trevor Lawrence is I wanted to coming into the season, I wanted to see him improve, right? He's been labeled, the number 1 pick since the minute he stepped foot on campus at Clemson and won the national championship as a freshman, and kind of the story went from there on. And for me, there were a lot of questions, I had about him in terms of coming in this season. I wanted to see him improve, and some of that was just anticipation, right? Throwing receivers open, being more accurate downfield. The kid's got the size. He's almost 6'6". He's athletic as heck. He's at 216, but I think that's something to do with his shoulder injury and that he couldn't lift weights. But I think he'll get back up to over 220 easily. So he's got the prototypical size, prototypical arm strength, can make all the NFL throws. And I think early on in the season, I saw him making a little bit more of those anticipation throws down the field, getting guys open, hitting them in stride. But there's he's not a can't miss prospect for me. He's obviously, I think, the best of the 5 overall if you put everything together. But he's a guy that has some work to do as well. I had some similar questions last year with Justin Herbert, and he ended up having a great season as a rookie with the Chargers. So this is something that could develop. He's obviously still developing in terms of Lawrence, that is, and I can see him getting better and better. But yeah, in terms of prototypical size, speed, ratio, arm strength, make all the throws. A guy can process the, post snap and all that stuff. We talked about him being able to be the leader, the captain, if you will, on the field as well. He's got it all, and I think he's a guy that's going to go down there and try and change the franchise along with Urban Meyer.
Ernie 777 says that he likes Lawrence, but he gets a little skittish because he's always been the golden boy. You think
he's never produced well against big teams. He's always had some clunkers in those big games. So that's something you have to keep an eye on as well.
Neil, your thoughts on Lawrence?
I don't think he's got the golden boy attitude or demeanor on the field, though. Some of these kids, you talk about a guy like Johnny Manziel that always went ahead and was a knucklehead on the field because he knew he was the golden boy. You don't really see that from Trevor Lawrence. You see a dude that's pretty well collected and poised and stays within himself. You like that he gets emotional, but he does it in terms of being a good teammate. I don't see golden boy with this kid. I know people make fun of his hairstyle and called him sunshine and all this other garbage. But, I think, I love the kid. Obviously, I think that he's the number one quarterback in this draft, the number one pick in this draft. And it's not close. He's done nothing but win since, he was in high school, and he's been the second coach on the field for, 4 years at Clemson now. So, I have no problem turning my franchise over to this kid. I think he orchestrates himself in the right way, conducts himself with great behavior on and off the field. Face of the franchise type guy, won't embarrass the ownership. Great character, all the intangibles, leadership, and everything else. Like those are all things that, you see a top talent like this, and sometimes, you have to ask some questions about those other things on the side. I don't think he's got any question marks as far as those things are concerned. So I'm amped up for Trevor Lawrence. If I'm Jacksonville, rock and roll.
Yeah, that's definitely a great pick for them. I don't think they've got a Blake Bortles on their hands this time. The second pick is in, and it is no surprise. It's Zach Wilson, Neil's guy. He's been touting Zach Wilson since probably the second or third week of the college football season. Stopper, tell us a little bit about what was the first thing you noticed about Zach Wilson, and why were you so high on him early?
Well, it was his ability to really make anything happen from the pocket that was thrown at him. And I know early on he's playing, people like Navy, right? But, at the same time, the kinds of throws that he was making were special, right? I talk all the time about, his ability to, place the ball on a dime, to change his arm angle when he needed to, playmaking with his arm and with his legs, because he's a pretty athletic kid. If anybody watched his pro day, like they threw the gamut at him even after he did his script. They asked him to complete, XYZ types of throws under pressure, in this, situation, whatever the case may be. And, he pocket fired the ball down the field. Now I understand that, he's at times, short hop the ball, or, he hasn't 100% been accurate, but again, you're talking about a dude that completed 75+% of his throws, had a 33-3 touchdown ratio. Like he had video game type numbers. They want to knock on him for not playing, top level competition. He did play Houston, had a great game against Houston. He played Boise, had a great game against Boise. Had a quick turnaround game against Coastal Carolina with 4 days to prepare. I don't think anybody's going to perform necessarily well in that sort of situation. And then San Diego State had a clunk of a first half and came back to play pretty well in the second half. So, he took care of the business that he had to take care of. And when it comes down to it, there's something about this kid. He's got an it factor to me. And, he made that BYU offense hum like a fine-tuned engine. I love this kid. I think he's got some magical qualities to him. The other, I think, knock that I've heard throughout the year is that he tries way too hard to be like Patrick Mahomes. I don't see that. I see a kid just going out to trying to make plays how he can possibly make plays. And he has a lot of fun doing it too. The kid loves playing the game of football. You just see it in his demeanor on the field. The kid has a great time. So, New York, that franchise has not been able to get their act together for the past few years. I hope it's not going to be another Sam Darnold situation where, you got a young kid that, has a bunch of natural talent that, hasn't spent a whole lot of time playing the position, and he ultimately fails. But I think this kid has a lot more than Sam Darnold had to offer. I think the Jets are getting a top class pick right there.
Danny, you're not going to disagree with any of that, right?
Well, I'm not a card carrying member of the Zach Wilson fan club like Neil is. I can
get you. I know the owner. I can get you.
I like the kid. I don't like him as much as Justin Fields. For me, Justin Fields was the second best quarterback in this draft. Zach Wilson was third. The kid is talented, and you put on his tape. In terms of his ability to throw the football, it's rare. I mean, he's got downfield accuracy with a strong arm. Neil touched on some of the things where he can change his platform, the arm angle throws, the running jump throws down the field. He can easily flick the ball 30, 40, 50 yards on the field with just an easy toss. It looks like nothing to him. So he's talented. There's questions in terms of what I had about him, in terms of, durability, keep him staying healthy. the schedule, I know it bothers Neil, but it's something that I took into consideration in terms of, what he had to go up against. Now, I think New York made the right choice because I think he's a more talented quarterback than Sam Darnold. I know a lot of people don't agree with that, but I think he is a talented quarterback than Sam Darnold. New York's going to be a tough situation for him. I hope he has the right support staff, not only within the organization, but also outside the organization, because the media can get tough. He's a guy that is going to come in, ballyhooed in terms of the, franchise savior and all this stuff. And, New York is a long way from Provo, Utah. So, we'll see how he handles all that. I wish the kid luck. Yeah, like I said, you put on his tape and you can't help but to get excited about his potential. But yeah, I mean, the kid's talented.
All right, the third pick of the draft is in, and I think Danny Shimon is going to be brokenhearted when he sees who is off the board.
Don't say it. My God.
San Francisco has really surprised people because there was a lot of talk over the last 24, 48 hours that the San Francisco 49ers were now interested in Trey Lance. And that they made this trade to get up to the number 3 spot because they were set on Mac Jones, that they really liked him. But Adam Schefter is reporting that was their fail-safe. They knew that Mac Jones would be, in their mind, worthy of the 3rd overall selection in the draft. But over the last few weeks, while they've been delving into the tape and doing interviews with people and so forth, they have fallen in love with Trey Lance. But that's according to Adam Schefter. The reality is that in this mock draft, it's Justin Fields, Danny's 2nd overall quarterback, who has gone to the San Francisco 49ers. And guys, that means that now we have an opportunity to talk to a representative of the Atlanta Falcons about potentially moving up. But before I make that call, what do you guys think quickly about Justin Fields? Danny, share with us your disappointment.
I am heartbroken because for me, if it's Mac Jones or Trey Lance, I'm telling you right now, do what you got to do, get the number 4 pick. Let's go get Justin Fields and let's take care of this problem that the Bears have had for decades here. So and now we got to think about it. Now we'll talk about Atlanta. Let's see what they want for that pick. But for me right now, and I don't know if Neil's on the same page here, but I think right now it's got to be Mac Jones. He's my next highest rated quarterback on my board. That's a position of need. That's the only reason I trade up to get in this spot right now is to get a quarterback, even though possibly the unicorns out there in terms of Kyle Pitts. But I think without a quarterback, you can have all the Kyle Pitts you want. You can't get the ball to him. So I think for me right now, it's got to be Mac Jones with this pick. I'm not sure if Neil's on page there, but that's who I'd go for. And let's see what they want for the pick.
Yeah, Mac Jones has the shortest avenue to reach the field. To me, Trey is a little bit more of a developmental guy. I understand they both They both had 17 starts over the course of their careers, respective careers. Mac Jones has had a completely different, frame of 17 starts than Trey Lance has had. Let's just go ahead and be honest about that. And if you consider the trajectory that Mac Jones has taken over the course of his development, from day one when he came in for Tua broke his hip against Mississippi State and had deer in the headlights, to where he is now, that is rocket ship development right there. That's rocket ship growth. And for a kid that's still pretty decently raw at the position, I think he's still got a lot more growing to do, but he's still got the shortest avenue to get to the field, the shortest runway to get to the field between the two guys. Mac Jones, to me, also fits, I think, what Nagy inherently wants in a quarterback. He doesn't necessarily want the kid that's going to be running all over the field and trying to be a running back at the same time. I think he wants a kid that's going to be a drop back guy. So I think Mac Jones fits his offense conceptually better than what Trey would fit, and that's where the Bears probably have to go here.
Well, let me get on the phone with Aaron Freeman, who writes for the Falcons, writes about the Falcons, and let's see how that conversation went, which I did a little while earlier. Aaron Freeman is with me now, and we're going to talk trade with the Atlanta Falcons. Aaron, thank you very much for being a part of our mock draft.
Absolutely. Always looking to negotiate a big blockbuster trade for the Atlanta Falcons.
There you go. Well, this is what the board looks like now. Trevor Lawrence has been drafted by the Jaguars. No surprise there. The Jets have selected Zach Wilson, and Justin Fields has gone to the San Francisco 49ers. Does that surprise you at all?
No, I've been hearing various rumors what the 49ers want with that third overall selection. It changes by the day. Some days it's Mac Jones, some days it's Trey Lance, some days it's Justin Fields. At this point in time, you can flip a couple of coins and figure out who they're going to take. So it changes day by day, but that is not a surprise to me.
What is the interest level right now of the Falcons of trading that fourth overall pick and moving down in the draft? Clearly, this team, the Falcons, have a lot of needs similar to the Chicago Bears. What is the interest level right now? Am I wasting my time talking to you about a potential trade?
No, absolutely. I think that's what we as the Falcons ultimately want to do. That's our ideal scenario. We want a team like Chicago to come up the board, blow us away with a massive trade haul. And so we can walk away from this draft with multiple first round picks, multiple day 2 picks over the next couple of years. And that will be able to use to rebuild our roster and potentially, should we desire to make a change at quarterback in the near future, have the ammunition to do so.
Guys, we already know based on his opening comments there that he's looking for some multiple picks. This is the Falcons are a team that's overhauling their roster. They've got tons of needs. Are you guys scared off at all based on what he has just said, Danny?
No, I know coming in, you're gonna have to give up multiple picks down the line, and I'm ready to do it.
Well, you feel the same way, right?
Yeah, 100%. You know, it's just a matter of what multiple means. You know what I mean? It's a matter of, I understand that the baseline is probably going to be 3 first rounders. It's just what we throw in on top of that is what's either going to make me happy or scare the hell out of me.
Well, let's take a listen to what my first offer was to Aaron Freeman. Well, I've got an offer here that I think is going to blow you away. This is us receiving that 4th overall pick, and I'm not messing around here. You guys will receive the 20th overall pick of the first round, the 3rd rounder of this year's draft, which is the 84th overall pick, and then next year you get the 1st round and 2nd round picks. Let's do this deal.
I like where your starting point is, but I feel like if I'm going to move all the way back to 20, that I would want a little bit more from this deal.
Anybody scared off at this point?
Well, I mean, at this point, we're talking, Mac Jones and Trey Lance. So I think we all agree here it's going to be Mac Jones if we go up there. I would say, if you want, the next year's first round pick, and I would throw in the following year's first round pick. I wouldn't give them an additional 2nd round pick. So I'm talking 3 first round picks and a 3rd to move up to number 4.
Neil?
The next 3 years, this year, the year after that, and 2023 first rounders, and maybe as a day 2 guy is what I would probably pivot to.
Okay, well, let's see how it went. Could we potentially include a player from the Chicago Bears roster for you? You need a backup quarterback as well, and Nick Foles has a proven track record of playing very well off the bench.
Yeah, but I haven't forgiven Nick Foles for that comeback win last year, so I don't want any part of him. There is one player on the Bears that does fill a need that the Falcons have, and I'm curious if he's a little too precious for you to part ways with, and that would be left guard James Daniels. That might sweeten this pot.
Including James Daniels, we have depth and part of the offensive line. So that is not scaring me off. You guys are nodding your heads in agreement. Is this going well?
So we're giving them the 20th pick. We're giving them our 3rd round pick, and we're giving them next year's 1st and 2nd and James Daniel.
That's the offer that's on the table right now. We'll see what he says. Let's go on.
I am leaning in that direction. Is it possible that instead of the 2022 2nd round pick, we could change that into a 2023 1st round pick?
Oh, man, you are a tough negotiator, Mr.
Yeah, I'm going to milk you for as much as I can at this point.
So that's 3 first rounders, a third rounder, and James Daniels.
Yes.
Guys,
That to me right now, it's gotten a little bit too much. What I would want something back in compensation along with this pick as well. So I want either a third round pick next year, return back, or the following year's draft as well. So I want something else coming back too.
I would do a day 2 pick in the future. I would take away our third round pick this year, do a day 2 pick in the future.
Okay, let's see where it goes.
I'm willing to allow you to keep your third rounder this year if you can give me the 3 firsts and James Daniels.
Okay.
If that makes it a little bit more palatable to you.
Okay, so you're asking for James Daniels, 3 first round picks. James Daniels and 3 first round picks is what you're asking.
Yes.
Looking at the clock here. I should say that I made another offer, but he was steadfast on that offer.
I want to throw out to the people and listeners in the chat. What would you guys say? I say do it.
Toaf says nope,
Wow.
nope. Hughes
Why,
says,
Toaf?
I'm actually okay with that.
Right, because you're giving up this year's first round pick, 20th, which is fine. You're giving up next year's first round pick and the following year's first round pick. We talked some of this yesterday in terms of giving up first round picks. It's kind of okay because first round is it's a crapshoot in terms of hitting on first round picks. And Ryan Pace does a good job of getting in those day 2, day 3 picks. Salary cap's going to be going up. We can fill around a young rookie quarterback in that contract. Actually, you made this point last night, Alden. It was a terrific point, I thought. I think that's a nice way to kind of make up for losing those first round picks. So I think 3 first round picks and James Daniels, we're dealing from a position of strength, in my opinion. I say we do it. We get our franchise quarterback. He's not Justin Fields, but he's the next guy on my board, and he's a guy that potentially could be the face of the franchise. Charismatic. He's a guy that's going to be able to lead this offense a little bit differently than what Fields could do, but still a guy who's cerebral, probably the best deep ball thrower in the draft. Terrific accuracy. I say go do it.
Were we not expecting to have 6 picks involved in a deal to try and move up to the top 5? We're getting away for 3 first rounders and a player that we didn't even use last year and had a really rock solid offensive line by the time we got to week 15. That's where I'm at.
For me, James Daniels is a starter, guys. I mean, he was playing well last year before he got hurt at left guard.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably going to be moved over to right guard this year. But with the way that season ended last year, I think with Barnes at right guard, I can live with that, right? And plus, we have some depth in this draft. We're keeping our third round pick here, so if we want to go, we still have our second round pick. We get attack the offensive line if you want some more depth later on. We have those 4, 6 round picks. So this is, I think, a situation where we go up and we get our quarterback. And I know Tao hit in the chat saying that for Justin Fields he would do it, but for Mac Jones he wouldn't. I'm a big Justin Fields fan as well, but Mac Jones is a guy that's proven at the biggest stage to be able to do the same things in terms of in the pocket that Justin Fields can do. He doesn't give you the outside the pocket stuff, which I know everybody wants, but to solidify the position potentially for the next 10 so years, I would say go ahead and do it.
All right.
I'm in that boat.
Let's take a look to see if we come to an agreement here. 3 first round picks. James Daniels. You got a deal.
Okay.
We'll be calling the NFL office with the deal. We'll put the papers in. Again, it is James Daniels, 3 first round picks for the 4th overall pick of this draft.
Yes.
I think I just lost my job.
Way to be confident, GM.
I mean, that was a tough decision, but all season long, we have been talking about the absolute need to move up and select one of these top 5 quarterbacks. The opportunity was there. There's just no way in my mind that we could have waited until the 8th pick, the 10th pick, and so forth. There was just too much of a risk going there. I had this guy ready to make a deal, and I said to myself, Danny and Neil have been telling me we've got to get one of these 5 guys. We've got to get one of these 5 guys. And I pulled the trigger. I felt like I had to.
Remember, 49ers gave up the 12th pick and 2 other first-round picks and a 3rd to go up just 9 spots. We just went 16 spots by giving up just 3 first-round picks, our 20th pick, which is less value than the 12th pick. And we got 2 first-round picks and a player, a good player, a good young developmental player, but a player entering the last year of his contract, okay? A guy that we played most of the season without last year. So I think that's not really taking much away from us. So I think we made out better moving up 16 spots than what the 49ers did, moving up just 9 spots. And we got our franchise quarterback.
We definitely spent a lot less than what we thought we were going to spend, given what other teams have orchestrated, given what we would have spent for Russell Wilson, given what really honestly we expected to let go of. So, I mean, hell, if we rock and roll with the 3 first-rounders and a guy that didn't play all last year, I'm great with that.
I know we say 3 first-rounders, but technically it's only 2 first-rounders because we're still using the 4th pick this year. So,
right.
So,
Yeah,
I mean, I'm cool with that.
Yeah, sure.
I'm cool with that. And I said I think that's a not that big of a price to pay. It's a big price, but not a big of a price to pay, as long as we keep that 2nd, 3rd, 4th round picks that we have going on in the future. So awesome trade.
PV makes a really good point here. He says that he believes other teams can make better offers to Atlanta than I just made to Atlanta and that they accepted. And I don't know about that. I mean, I thought about this a lot, and I think that the key was James Daniels. That offensive line of the Atlanta Falcons is in terrible, terrible shape. So by them getting the 20th pick of the first round and then getting a first round caliber offensive guard, early 2nd round, late 1st round caliber offensive guard, I think that's going to be really tough to beat. Plus, from their standpoint, they're looking at it, well, there's no guarantee that this trade is going to push the Chicago Bears over the top. And so maybe I'm getting, over the next 2 years, a top 10 pick. So I think it's a win-win for most teams, but I don't know if the Patriots would have made an offer like that, because I think that they're going to potentially look to move up and draft a quarterback. I just don't think so. But PZ brings up a good point. It's what I've been worried about, which is why I pulled the trigger of 3 first-round draft picks.
Plus, with the Patriots, there's talk now that they're in negotiations with Jimmy Garoppolo's agent to renegotiate his contract so they can facilitate a trade with the 49ers for Jimmy Garoppolo. That's been, we talk about if there's smoke, there's fire. That's been going on. So we'll see how that turns out with that option. So that could be a team that will not be willing to go up either. So this could be something that could fall right into the Bears' laps.
Toa makes a good point. He says, I don't think other teams are quite as desperate for quarterback.
100%.
So Pace and Nagy are.
I don't know. I mean, you look at Washington. I mean, they're pretty desperate. They got Ryan Fitzpatrick as a starting quarterback. We think Andy Dalton's bad. Yeah, Fitzpatrick, get hot and cold. But Washington could be looking for a quarterback. Teams that you might not think are looking for a quarterback. Could Minnesota be looking for a quarterback? Could Detroit be looking for a quarterback? I know they got Jared Goff, but could they be someone that'd be looking for a quarterback as well? So it'd be easier for them to go from 7 to 4 as opposed to from us from 20 to 4. Once you got that number 4 pick secured, you got your quarterback that you like, you go get him.
Zero margin for error. Leave room for no error.
I love Stephen's comment in the chat room. Who's going to break the news to Andy Dalton that he's no longer the first string quarterback?
Hey, nobody's saying Mac Jones is coming in starting day 1 now.
Okay,
Mac Jones has to come in and get out.
I think he's him and Lawrence are probably the most pro ready, I would say, to come in and start week 1. But I mean, Dalton could theoretically be the starter, week 1, week 2, and then just let Mac Jones kind of, get into that role and get comfortable with it and go from there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's get to the actual pick here. We're on the clock, and you guys clearly want Mac Jones, but I got to tell you, over the last 24 hours, I've been rethinking it. I've been a huge Mac Jones guy for months now, thinking that he probably was the third overall, right behind Zach Wilson. But over the last 24, 48 hours, Trey Lance has really been growing on me, similar to what the reports are that the 49ers have now fallen in love with him. He's supposedly the smartest, or one of the smartest quarterbacks coming out. I went back and looked at his tape, and the throws that he makes, the escapability that he has. I know that the portfolio is small. There's that Mitch Trubisky effect. I know the competition is weak, but let's face it, Andy Dalton is going to be the starter this year. And this is a good quarterback room for a kid like Trey Lance to grow in, to learn in. Guys, talk me out of Trey Lance, because to be honest with you, I'm kind of leaning towards Trey right now.
Well, I mean, for me, I just look at the overall body of work, right? Yeah, I understand in terms of the athletic ability, it's not in the same ballpark, right? Trey Lance is a better athlete in terms of, the ball, with him as a runner, ball carrier. I mean, he's very similar to a Lamar Jackson, the contact power, the contact balance to be able to bounce off defenders and continue going. That gives you the extra threat. He played in a pro style system. We talked about, he touched on, he's smart, intellectual. He's a guy that has impressed a lot of NFL teams and scouts by his football acumen, his knowledge of the game, his dedication to the game. But he's a guy that accuracy wise is nowhere in the same ballpark as Mac Jones, right? And you and us as scouts want to keep our jobs. So if we get a Trey Lance and he's not ready to play next year, and Andy Dalton goes down week 2, and you like thrust this kid into the lineup, and he looks horrible, just because he's coming from a FCS level of competition. He's got some mechanical issues where he's got to clean up, right? And I think that will be cleaned up. It's not a huge deal that I'm worried about, but it's going to take time for him to be ready, as opposed to Mac Jones. If Dalton gets hurt week 2, you can flip Mac Jones in there, and I'm very confident that he can get you through and win games for you as well. So I said, for me, of the 5 quarterbacks, the 2 that I felt were for sure not going to bust, meaning that their floor was going to be solid NFL starters, were Justin Fields and Mac Jones. I had zero issues in terms of these guys busting. So we just made this huge trade, gave up future draft capital. I want to go with not the bet overall athlete, but I want to go with the best quarterback as of today, and for me, that's Mac Jones.
We did this back in 2017 where we took the guy that was a gamble, right? I think between the two, Trey Lance is more of the gamble right now, because he has the furthest way to go.
Higher.
His ceiling is probably higher, right, but he's definitely more of the gamble. It had. If we had gone back to 2017 and taken the better bet, we would have not been in this situation right now, I feel. Exactly. So, ultimately, Mac, he's still got improvements to make, but this kid has talent, and that alongside with the killer mentality that the kid has, he's going to take you a long way, I feel. Before we got into, draft day, one of the notes I wrote down was that, the interviews for this kid is going to be massive. It's going to be critical. It's going to be crucial for really how high this kid climbs. And the only thing that he has done is just completely blow people away in the interview process. And so, he's got all the intangibles. I personally despise his mechanics. I think that need to be tweaked. I think both guys still have, Trey's got more minute mechanical issues. Mac, to me, has to, go ahead and, change our carburetor. But, you love his production. He's still growing. His ceiling is massive. He's strong in the pocket. He doesn't pat the ball. He doesn't have the happy feet. He doesn't get rattled. He keeps his eyes downfield, does a good job reading what he's given defensively, under duress or not, and he just makes the damn plays. So I think he's a sure bet of the 2, and he's the one that I'm going with 100%.
And not that I'm saying Trey Lance doesn't have this trait, but we talk about competitive toughness and talking about leadership from that quarterback position, how critical that is, right? And this kid had a chance to leave Alabama when they had Tua and they got Jalen Hurts, but he said, no, I'm going to stick around. I'm going to show these guys that I can play with these at this competition. And he's stuck around. and look where he went from, coming into the season, a possible, day 3 pick to now a top 5 pick. So that shows me that competitive, that toughness he's got. And then at the Senior Bowl, I keep touching on this, but this is very important. He had just met some of these receivers. He had not known them before, walked up to them and made, friends with them, and then asked them, he's like, where do you want the football? Help me to make you shine in these practices so that when these scouts see you making these catches, and I will help you utilize your strengths and, have that shine here throughout this week. And that really took to the receivers. They gravitated to him. By the end of that week, he was that leader of that offense unit on that squad. So that shows me leadership. So again, this kid has, for me, yeah, he doesn't have a 6-pack, but that's not going to do anything. That's going to help you win football games on Sundays. So this is a guy for me that's going to be able to help you lead this franchise and be the face of this franchise going forward.
You know who had a 6-pack? Mark Sanchez. He was on the cover of GQ. How many games did he win?
Right.
There you go, Aldo. There's your deciding factor.
He had the butt fumble. He let a
butt fumble.
Yeah, get the ball out.
He was also our backup quarterback.
Well, guys, here it is.
Wow.
He just let us ramble here, and he went in against. Oh wow! All right. So now I know how it feels to have your GM just totally ignore you.
No, I felt that way for the past 10 years, kid. Don't worry about it. I know exactly how that feeling feels.
All right. Well, I'm going to sharpen my resume. Just make sure everything's ready to go.
I'm sorry, guys. I mean, you guys really made a compelling case, and I'm with you all the way, but there is still this gut feel, the same gut feel I had about Patrick Mahomes the year that the Trubisky came out, and I'm just getting this regarding Trey Lance. This guy, to me, has these special qualities, and I don't think we have to rush him. I think that with Andy Dalton, if we continue on this draft and make some improvements to the offensive line, I think that we could make sure that Trey doesn't see the field in 2021 and that he comes on in 2022 better prepared to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. Let's take a look at some of his tape and you guys can comment on it. Daddy, why don't you start first? This is Trey.
Again. Yeah, because we talk about his mobility here. We talk about his ability to get downfield with his legs, use his legs as a weapon. His speed, his ability to the burst to be able to get through, would-be tacklers and get into the end zone. He gives you that added dimension, right? Stuff that we've seen a little bit with Mitch Trubisky, but this guy takes it to the next level. Like I said, he's similar to a Lamar Jackson, not as elusive in the open field, but similar in terms of being a threat as a ball carrier with the football in his hand. So. You see some of it here. Here is a quick draw up the middle. You can see some of that contact balance, the contact power to run through some tackles there and get into the end zone. So, in terms of arm talent, that's a pro formation there. Had his back turned to the defense and look, throws a beautiful dime bucket throw right into the receiver on the run. The receiver didn't have to break a stride. So the kid's got talent. All 5 of these guys are talented. All 5 of these guys got first-round grades for me. And while I'm disappointed that we didn't go with Mac Jones, a ready-made guy, we talked about earlier, this guy is going to possibly has the higher ceiling. So you could be drafting a future potential Pro Bowl quarterback here. So, while I am disappointed a little bit, I am not at all discouraged by the pick of Trey Lance.
Neil, let me give you some highlights to talk to. Here's the second package I put together.
Yeah, so again, the one thing that I don't necessarily like about the kid is that he does a lot of times seem like a run first guy. He doesn't necessarily go through all the reads, but at the same time, he knows that he has the athletic advantage over pretty much everybody that he's playing. We're seeing highlights. We saw highlights against the Fighting Lumberjacks of Northern Arizona, and one of my personal favorites, the Butler Bulldogs of Indianapolis, Indiana. So, not exactly Clemson or Ohio State, but the kid's out there making plays. So you got to give him all the credit in the world. He's athletic as hell. He's long as hell, big as hell, 6'3.5", 200 big as hell pounds. So it doesn't really matter about the size or the athletic traits because we know he's got them. During his first pro day, he had 2 pro days. Actually, I didn't get a chance to see the second one, but his first pro day, I remarked on social about, the kid's mechanics. He is, we're just getting to the point where we're nitpicking guys right now. During the past week, they started talking about on all the talking, head, TV shows about how, Trey Lance's mechanics, we found some flaws. Well, if you actually look at him mechanically, he's a hell of a lot further down the road than Mac Jones is. That the kid, he takes the ball, sets with a shoulder wide base, balls at the breastplate. He's not a liability, for turnovers at that point. Makes the read, front toe pointed towards target, lets the ball go with a quick release. The ball jumps out of his hand. It actually gains velocity on the way to the receiver. And he follows through. That throwing hand is in the oppo hip pocket. So he gets his hips around. He puts torque into the ball, which are all things that Mac Jones doesn't do. And that's why I say I can't stand his mechanics, because he does need tweaks. But still, if you look at what Mac Jones has done on the field, you could tell how strong an arm that kid has, because he's still able to get the ball from A to B with zip on it. And once he refines those mechanics, he's going to be a hell of a lot more lethal with his arm. With Trey, I mean, with him, it's just playing big boy football, man. He's been playing football. He's been playing the quarterback position for 5.5 minutes. He was an athlete in high school, got recruited by FBS level schools to be a tight end or a safety or a wide receiver, all kinds of different positions. Stayed true to his heart, wanting to play at the quarterback position, be the leader of the team, and went down to North Dakota State and won a national title, and arguably the most prolific year in terms of quarterback efficiency in the history of the game of football. So I'm not pissed off about the pick, although, to be honest with you, I'm not pissed off about it. I love the kid. Honestly, we've been talking ever since day one about how high this kid's ceiling actually is, and all the leadership and football intelligence, football in the blood sort of intangibles that this kid brings to the table. Coming from a football family, Pops was a pro player. So not upset about it. I think the kid has great tools from an athletic and mechanical standpoint. It's just a matter of he's going to take a little bit more time to get to the field. His runway is a little bit longer, but once he actually does step on the field, I'm amped up, brother.
Yeah, that's the thing about him is you got to keep in mind now he's not going to be ready to play next year, in my opinion, right? So now we have to keep Dalton and we have to keep Nick Foles as a backup as well, because so you have to carry 3 quarterbacks. Because if Nick Foles, like I said, if Dalton gets hurt in the first or second week, and you got to put this kid into the spotlight, it might be too much for him to handle, in my opinion. We'll see how it goes, but that's a great point Neil made out, that he wanted to go play for Minnesota, and PJ Fleck told him, "I'll bring you on as a safety." And he said, "No, I believe in my skills as a quarterback." And I'm going to North Dakota State, and lo and behold, look at him now. So, I'm disappointed that you didn't go with Mac Jones, but this kid has potential that could be, Pro Bowl level. So I'm very, very excited about his potential here with the Bears. The only thing is with me, like I said, is he was my 5th of the 5 quarterback. He was my 5th rated quarterback. I just thought we left probably more wins on the table by bypassing Mac Jones. So,
well, and it's funny too, because I have a sense of disappointment too. It's like I've been touting Mac Jones forever, and then I feel like, well, why are you changing your mind here? But it's plays like this that just really, I said to myself, this is the new era NFL quarterback. This is a guy, and I know Neil said that he looks to run first. He had that opportunity here, but he kept his eyes downfield. He saw the quarterback or the receiver crossing in the middle of the field, and he's got that laser-like throwing velocity.
Cannon for an arm, man.
The ball explodes out of his hand.
It really does. And so all of the people who are giving me shit in the chat room, take a look at this play. It is an example. Now, I know they're playing some University of North Dakota, and it's then the 3rd down, and they're winning and so forth. But you still
don't disparage the Fighting Sioux, although. Come on now.
Sorry, Fighting Sioux. But you still are looking at the athletic traits. You're still looking at his head. His head is always looking. It looks left.
He's going through a progression, right?
He's going through the progressions. Look at the footwork. It's just beautiful. It is effing beautiful. And he throws, with that throwing motion that you want to see quarterback.
A quick release. He snaps it off his wrist right there, real quick. He gets rid of the ball. Yeah. I mean, he's got all the tools. It's no doubt about it. The only question is, And this could speed up his process, right? His ability to get on the field quicker is the fact that he played in a system that has pro style sets. He's done waggle plays, he's done play action, he's done rollouts. He's done with the play action where he has his back towards the defense, turns around, and has to then look at the defensive cipher once he's gotten back there, as opposed to just being strictly shotgun throughout his playing career. So, those things are some of the things that I'm hearing now. He's impressing scouts and coaches by what he knows already. So, the feeling now is that this kid might just actually get on the field quicker than what originally was anticipated, or what originally was thought out there. So we'll see what happens. Now, again, he's coming off a season where he only played one game. So for me, I would just put him on. This is a huge investment for your franchise. I would put him on the bench, and until I'm certain, 100% certain, similar with Patrick Mahomes, where you saw the talent there, but he was erratic in terms of his ability to decipher coverages downfield and making timely throws. Patrick Mahomes was for me coming on in 2017. I know although you differ, but for me he wasn't worthy of that second or third pick overall in the draft, right? But the Chiefs had a plan for him. They said, we're going to take him, we're going to sit him, and we're going to train this kid. And now you see the finished product. So that's the same thing you have to do here with Trey Lance here. We got John DeFilippo as his quarterback coach. Let him be attached to John DeFilippo's hip, and let him just learn for this first year. And you take your lumps with Andy Dalton and Nick Foles, and hopefully you make the playoffs and you can keep your job.
All right. I know I'm looking at our counter here, and there's tons of people just joining us. So let me get them caught up with what we have. Let me get rid of Steven's comment. It's a good one, though. He says producing 2 Pro Bowl quarterbacks, North Dakota State producing 2 Pro Bowl quarterbacks in a few years is highly unlikely. He would have taken Mac Jones.
Let me be crystal clear about one thing here, boys, real quick, though.
Please.
Let's not pretend like North Dakota State is just a roast beef, college football program. So we're talking about arguably the Alabama of FCS for the past 20 years, right?
Yeah, indeed.
The first time I ever saw North Dakota State live, I didn't know what the hell the school even was. This was like my, I think, second year at Ball State as a recruiting assistant at Ball State, and we played North Dakota State at home. And we're thinking, at least I was thinking to myself, oh, we got an FCS team coming in here. This should be a cakewalk. It should be easily one of our 4 wins on the year. No, but North Dakota State came in, and he had just a bunch of dudes flying around the field looking like Vikings, kicking our ass. We were physically beat down after that game. It felt like a 38-14 beatdown, even though it was only 29-23 of a loss. We ended up losing to these guys. And this is a school, everybody that's listening. Remember, this is a school that consistently goes into FBS football programs and beats their ass. Not Ball States. Talk about Kansas States, Minnesota's. Whoever they play, they come in there ready to kick some ass. So let's not pretend this is roast beef tech over here. This is a legit big time college football outfit that had this season the worst year that they've had since probably 1994. All right, so I'm not in terms of lineage, right? If you're talking in terms of culture and lineage, like he has the winning culture behind him, around him, supporting him. And, I don't think there's too many guys on this roster currently in Chicago that have that kind of culture at their back. I know Ted Thompson thinks his culture is the greatest in the world. We were up there with the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? But it's not that, guys. And so a kid that could bring that sort of element into the locker room, a guy that knows how it's been done, knows how to do it going forward, has been around nothing but winning, for the past 4 years, and for a program that's experienced nothing but winning and national titles for the past 20. I think that's invaluable. In terms of intangible things bringing to the table, I think that's invaluable.
Thank you for saying that, because I think that needed to be said. People should not poo-poo the fact that this kid comes from North Dakota State. That's an excellent, excellent program, and I love what you said. It's the Alabama of its conference. Let's get people up to date as to what has transpired. No surprise. Trevor Lawrence picked by the Jaguars, first overall. Zach Wilson to the Jets. Then a surprise based on all the news that we've been hearing. People were saying it's going to be Mac Jones to the San Francisco 49ers. And we've been hearing Trey Lance. No, it's Justin Fields going to the San Francisco 49ers in our Bears mock draft. And then I called the Atlanta Falcons and worked out a trade. 3 first-round draft picks, the 20th overall from this season, the first-round pick from the upcoming draft next season, and then in 2023, the first-round pick, along with left guard James Daniels. It's a huge price to pay, but I truly believe that we got our franchise quarterback in Trey Lance. Let's go on now and look at the next several picks. There are in the Cincinnati Bengals have gone wide receiver with Jamar Chase. Kyle Pitts has gone to Miami now to be Tua's top receiver. Devontae Smith, the wide receiver, goes to the Detroit Lions. And Penei Sewell, the offensive tackle, will be blocking for whoever the quarterback is with the Panthers. Guys, your assessment on these top players. Let's start with Jamar Chase. What do you think about him going to Cincinnati, Danny?
I think this is the best receiver in the draft. He goes to play with Joe Burrow, who, of course, the last time these two connected or playing together, Jamar Chase just put up about 20 touchdown receptions. So to me, the best receiver in the draft. The kid's physical at the catch point. He's physical off the line of scrimmage. 6'1" and 208 pounds. Guy can go up and get it in a crowd. The guy can beat you around a 4.4 40 at his pro day. So. This to me, everybody thinks that the Bengals are going to go offensive line, and they do need an offensive lineman. But you put this type of playmaker with Joe Burrow, who's familiar with him, and then you have Tyler Boyd in the slot, and you have last year's second-round pick T. Higgins. Now you gave your franchise quarterback some weapons to play with. Now in the second round, we talked about my top 100. I have 14 offensive tackles. I have 12 offensive center / guards. So you can always get offensive line help in that second round. So that's where the Bengals should attack now in that area. But no, this is the right pick for the Bengals.
Let's move on in the interest of time here. And Neil, tell me about Kyle Pitts going to the Dolphins.
I mean, I'd be surprised if Kyle Pitts doesn't end up going number 5 to Cincinnati, to be honest with you. Again, the kid he doesn't have a position. He's an offensive weapon. He's a dude that, I mean, all-time leader for receiving yards by a tight end. Mackey Award winner last year, Biletnikoff finalist. Gives you all the versatility in the world in the passing game. At Florida, he played a move position. Think Aaron Hernandez in that sense. H-back responsibilities that involve blocking assignments and also F tight end. Now he's not going to be a Y guy. I doubt he's even an H-back. He's going to be an F tight end. He's going to be playing in a slot. He's going to be dominating, nickel safeties or nickel corners and creating all kinds of mismatches and reaping havoc, in the back half of defenses. He's a unicorn. I brought that term up, a couple weeks ago. I mean, the kid's an absolute unicorn. Match dynamic pass catcher, size, catch radius. The ability to contort his body to make catches, which you don't see have a whole lot of tight ends. I mean, I think the one thing, if you want to go ahead and nitpick yourself away, the one thing he's shown in film that was a little bit of a negative was that he was a little bit of a cradle catcher way too many times. He's got to improve as a hands catcher maybe, but. I mean, again, you talk about guys, showing out on pro day. He showed that, he had great hands, caught the ball really well, unbelievably fluid running routes in the open field. Probably needs to tighten up his route running a little bit. But, ultimately, I mean, we're talking about nitpicky stuff. This kid's an absolute offensive weapon. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to Cincinnati at 5, but the Dolphins have an absolute monster at 6.
Then it's the Lions getting the speedy wide receiver, Devontae Smith. Danny, you like that call for the Lions?
Yeah, I thought they were going to go offensive line here. I'm surprised they passed up on Penei Sewell, but Devontae Smith, obviously the Lions, the receiver is in need. They lost both their starting receivers. Marvin Jones went to the Jaguars, and of course Kenny Golladay went to the Giants. So it's a huge need. Devontae Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner. The kid is electric. He's just a big time playmaker. Obviously the weight at 166 concerns me a little bit. More so in terms of getting off the line as when someone's pressing him or running those shallow crossing routes, can a linebacker just simply knock him and reroute him off his path? So those are things you may have to scheme him. Some say that might be high for a receiver that you have to scheme open, but the kid's got superstar potential in him as well. And, the minute he stepped on the field at the campus of Alabama, he was just a go-to receiver. So the pick makes sense. A little surprising they bypassed the offensive line, but it makes sense.
Yeah. Neil, Sewell is probably could go down as one of the best offensive tackles of this decade. That's not hyperbole, is it?
Not at all. The kid's an absolute dancing bear. Has all the physical and athletic attributes, man. I absolutely love this kid. Quickness, speed, agility. He's the definition of a big athletic dude, man. Exceptional lower and upper power. Looks like he loves playing at the second level too. I mean, the kid covers downfield, shows great range. Putting dudes in the dirt. How I'm big on the nasty aspect of how offensive linemen play. You gotta be mean, you gotta be strong, you gotta be nasty. Put dudes in the dirt. I just love how this dude, gets after it in the run game. He's got that Gata mentality that I always talk about. He's got the natural mobility in the pass game. He just needs to improve his leverage. He needs to improve his technique. He has a tendency of playing high, the footwork. He's got to keep his feet consistently moving, maintaining his balance, having a plan, being physical as a pass pro guy. But as raw as he is in his technique, and as many times as he has gotten beaten on film, there's other times he does show the ability to recover, which is another elite trait. His athletic ability is off the charts. So, I mean, the things that are negatives about him are all things that could be taught. He's just a naturally physical dude, and when the pass pro comes second nature, just kind of like the run blocking is for this kid. He's going to be an all-around monster. Also, overall, lends position versatility with the size, athletic traits, natural physicality. I mean, he's an incredibly valuable piece. Could easily be. We talked about how high Trey Lance's ceiling is. How he could be an absolute dude for years to come if he realizes his potential. This guy probably has an even higher ceiling than Trey.
Then we move on to the 9th pick, belongs to the Broncos. They get that linebacker who Danny says is one of the superheroes of this draft, Parsons. Danny, you want to add anything to Parsons playing with Vic Fangio?
He just got his Roquan Smith. Basically, that's the role he's going to be playing in that defense right now. A guy to make sideline plays. It comes with some off-field question marks. There was an incident at Penn State that kind of put his character into question, but I'm sure that's been vetted already. But the guy is like I said, sideline playmaker, ran a 4.39 40 at 6'3", 239 pounds or something like that. And the guy can also rush off the edge from a 2-point stance on third down or passing situation. So Vic Fangio just got himself his Roquan Smith.
Then the Cowboys picked the first cornerback of the draft, Neil Patrick Surtain.
Patrick Surtain. What else can you say about this kid? Son of PS1. They call him PS2. 128 bits, better than 64 or 32, I should say. 38 straight starts for an elite program at corner. Love the build on the kid. The solid uppers. Just looks physical. The length allowed him to make plays on the ball and snatch picks where he shouldn't have otherwise. You talk about this kid's length. It's 32 and a half arms, 78 and a half wingspan, which is, pretty close to, top level elite. Highly explosive, 39 on the vert, almost 11 on the broad jump, strong as hell too. 18 reps on the bench. This is just a big physical specimen of corner that, you could put on the island to float around and cover guys. He's also going to make life hell at the line of scrimmage as a jammer. He's not necessarily the explosively twitched up guy that, in his hips or his feet, being very quick to react or sudden in his movements. But, and I do that comparatively to a guy like JC Horn, who is a very explosively twitched up dude. This kid is just more of a glider and a floater, big as hell, strong as hell, athletic as hell. The size and speed, the ball skills, the ability to read the offense with this kid, be instinctive in his reaction, whether it's mirroring routes, setting edges, all allow him to be a dominant player. He's got great physicality of the line, like I talked about. With his long arms, he establishes space. His tackling in the open field. The effort to go along with the physicality is what I love with him. Smooth in his drop, snappy in his release. He's a proud special teams player as well, so he brings also that sort of versatility as well, that kind of value. Not only being, one of those guys in the corner that only wants to play corner, but he has a humility, the humble, side of him also wants to dominate on special teams as well. So, he doesn't necessarily have that amazing closing burst to a ball carrier, but he's physical in contact. He drives his feet, gives you versatility in the defensive backfield, with his AA and size and physicality. His football intelligence could also flex back to safety as well if you wanted to go ahead and do that, be creative as a DC. But, the one place I would not play him would be in the slot. He's definitely an outside guy all the way.
Hugh Evans in the chat room says he would never draft a wide receiver in the top 10 unless it was somebody physical like Calvin Johnson or Julio Jones. And I used to feel that way. But in today's NFL, no, you want these weapons, these Jamar Chase, these Jalen Waddles, these explosive guys, because the rules are set up for these guys to make huge plays. You no longer, should, in my opinion, stay away from receivers in the top 10. Now, I probably would stay away, especially in this draft, because there's some really good talent that should be available in day 2. But for the most part, I think that axiom, that theory of staying away from wide receivers in the top 10 and so forth, I don't know if that's still legit. What do you think, Danny?
Well, I mean, you need receivers, right? And in the college game, and now is producing more and more receivers, and obviously with the NFL, kind of adapting to that type of a system in terms of the more wide open, play here at the next level. I think those receivers are coming in and they're ready to produce, quicker some of the what we've seen in the past. So, it's a passing league. Yeah, me too. I'm a little hesitant by taking receivers, especially in the top 10, especially when you need help. Like, for example, in Detroit, right? Like, I'm surprised that they passed, an offensive lineman for a receiver in this particular scenario. But I would, if it's between a receiver and a top, tackle, I'm always going to go tackle. Just that's the way I build my team. But yeah, I mean, receivers nowadays are being vital, are being drafted higher because they're vital pieces on these offenses that are now becoming more and more high powered and more high scoring at this current NFL stage.
Let's move on here and stay with you, Danny, talking about Jalen Waddle at number 11 going to the Giants.
It's a perfect example here. Explosive kid. The guy's got just, deep speed. He didn't have a chance to run a 40 at his pro day because he's coming back from that ankle surgery. But another guy that just gives you so much in terms of big play potential. Whether it's going down from the slot position or lining up on the outside, getting the ball to him in the slip screens, bubble screens, just letting him do his thing in the open field. Terrific special teams returner as well. So he helps you on both offense and special teams too. So this is something with the Giants. I mean, their mantra is they're going to try and help their young quarterback by putting weapons around him, Daniel Jones. And I think this goes right along with that theory, just getting him a weapon to go in and make plays there.
And then your superhero player, Rashawn Slater, Neil, goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. You think that's a good fit for the Eagles?
Love Rashawn Slater. He's a guy that I had on my board as either an offensive tackle or an interior offensive lineman. I think this is a kid that's very similar to a kid like Elton Jenkins that got taken a couple years back, where you can project him in multiple different places and he can be functional in multiple different places. Ultimately, I think that he's going to end up sliding inside, but he does have the length to be able to stick on the outside as on the low end as it is at 33 inches in his arm length. I think he's just long enough to be able to stick on the outside, even though I do project him inside, for the most part. But, again, he's a kid that, he would have been a 4-year starter at Northwestern. He has 37 starts overall. If you guys go back to 2019, I think when he was going up against that freak beast at Ohio State in the Big Ten conference there, Chase Young got drafted at Washington. He more than held his own and was competitive and, went man to man and was competitively tough. I love a lot of things that he does. And he's a classic, Pat Fitzgerald, Northwestern kid too. He's all about using good technique, having good base, playing with effort and toughness. He's agile. He's got very light feet, really good in space. He covers downfield, looks to finish blocks. And, he can hang in the second level too, just a token to this kid's athletic ability. He can hang with the small guys. He needs to improve his strength a little bit and power. He can sometimes get overmanned by dudes that are just brute stronger than he is. But, you hear Fitz talk about this kid. And, I always say when Fitz, says a kid is special, well, he's kind of special. Yeah. He's another guy where, the Senior Bowl would have been huge, I thought, for, measurables and competition and all that after not playing the season. But, smart, athletic, tough, physical is always a good bet. Versatility, always a good bet. And I wish we had this guy in our locker room, but he's going to a great place.
All right. Are you guys surprised, Danny? Are you surprised that Mac Jones is still available?
And that's the thing that could happen. It could play out. So if this happens in tomorrow night, where we see, the quarterbacks go 1, 2, 3, 4, and Mac Jones is not, the third or fourth quarterback, this could, happen. So if in the draft, the Bears have to be ready to pounce on in a situation where they move up. So at this point, I would assume or imagine teams are, Patriots, Reds, Washington football team are looking to calling around and see if they can move up and try and snag, Mac Jones in this particular scenario if this play actually plays out tomorrow night. So, he's still out there right now, and so but it could be a reality if this plays out like this tomorrow night.
Well, let's take a look at the next 4 picks and see who's on that board. It is Darisaw to the Chargers, Kwity Paye to the Vikings, and there he is, Mac Jones, 15th to the New England Patriots. They didn't even have to make a trade. And then Jalen Phillips, the edge guy, going to the Cardinals. I think you've said it all, Neil, about Christian Darrisaw. I'm not sure you need to say anymore. I know at number 13, you don't like this pick, and it's not because of the number 13 being unlucky. It's just you don't like this player.
Fire somebody immediately.
Exactly.
The kid is he's allergic to contact. I swear to God, the kid just does not play physical to save his life. The lazy tendencies drive me crazy. He just doesn't go for the extra block. He shuts it down before ends of plays. Technically he plays high. His foot speed for a tackle is poor, which is why I was saying earlier. I think that him being on the edge is a significant liability. I'd be worried about him injuring our quarterback if it's him on the edge versus a dude that like Chase Young. This isn't a dude that's going to hang in there with Chase Young. I highly doubt that. I should say I highly expect Chase Young to eat his lunch. If he plays high, the foot speed. Now, I mean, he is strong. You do see that. He's a guy that's just going to get in the way, but you do see his strength for as terrible as his mechanics are, his fundamentals are, his technique is. He's a guy that once he establishes contact with the guy, he stops moving his feet, and one of 3 things happens. Number one, he gets up in there, he latches onto the guy, and just stands there and holds the guy. Flag, or the guy's going to beat him with quickness, or he's going to get bull rush and just get knocked the hell over. And so, obviously the technique things are things that can be taught and all that, but my problem is just the lazy tendencies, the allergen of contact, right? The lethargic, moving laterally, drove me absolutely crazy. Like I said, I went back and watched 4 games of him earlier today just to make sure I wasn't getting it wrong. But I mean, he shows the inability to beat rushers to the edge too. I mean, he's when he's dropping, in pass pro, he for the really elite guys off the edge, he struggles to get there, and he ends up having to stretch and lunge. He's also guys really going to finish blocks too. And I know you guys. I beat that into the ground. How nasty you are, how much of a finisher you are. I talked about that BC game. I mean, it was really interesting. He played really well against BC earlier this year, gave really good effort, pushed a couple guys around. But again, the second I think, okay, well, maybe I was a little bit wrong on this guy. He goes and gets, hip thrusted by a 5'11", 195-pound DB. So I'm out on this guy. I don't like the way he plays. If anything, I take him as a mid to late round developmental guy with the athleticism that he does possess, which is a really good, nice trait that he does possess, but just all the stuff surrounding it, you can have a great piece of meat at dinner, but if all those sides are garbage, it kind of taints the meal a little bit.
It does indeed.
Especially if I pass Elijah Vera Tucker, who's a local kid there from USC. For me, it's got a higher grade on my board, and he's a guy that played left tackle last year. Previous year played left guard. He's got that the position versatility, and I think he's a guy that can play either position. So that was a little bit of a surprise there. They bypassed him for Darisaw.
That was exactly what I thought too, Danny. When I saw that, is I said, well, this is good for us because both Danny and Neil don't like Darrisaw, and so let somebody else pick him before our next pick grab him. So that's what's happened, and so hopefully we'll continue to see a trend here where some of the guys you have low or not even on your top 100 are going to be available when we pick in the second round. Let's pick things up a little bit so that we can get through this first round and make our second round selection. It's Kwity Paye to the Vikings. They need some edge rushing help. Danny, your surprise is probably Kwity Paye as opposed to some of the other guys at the edge position, right?
Yeah, especially with that Mike Zimmer defense. I mean, he likes length in his defensive ends. He likes guys that got the long arms and the long torsos. For me, this and production. This guy that just didn't have production. He's got the twitch. He's got the athletic ability. For me, I think when you kick him inside as a defensive tackle, like a 3 technique, he's probably a little more effective than being an edge guy. If you're going to play him as a defensive end, he's got to be a 4-3 system, and it's got to be in that wide 9 situation where he's lined up way outside the tackle's outside shoulder and just gets a beeline to the quarterback. So I don't like the fit there with Minnesota in terms of Kwity Paye.
We've talked enough about Mac Jones. The Patriots getting him is it's like they're getting Tom Brady, right?
Stealing, yeah.
It really is. Neil, you had Jalen Phillips, I think, at number 13 on your top 100. He goes 16th to the Cardinals. You must like that for them.
Love Jalen Phillips. I think he ended up being my top edge rusher on my board. This kid's the energizer buddy. He's about effort, about pursuit, covers ground. He has length and size and bend. At the beginning of the season, I felt that he needed to, further develop, and he still kind of does a little bit. But, to see this kid grow throughout the course of the year was really impressive. He just needs to be more of a complete rusher, but, he plays the edge well nonetheless. He's very good in space, just a big-ass athlete. If you guys go back and watch that pick versus Florida State, for all you guys listening and watching, watch that pick versus Florida State. That's a wow play. I always talk about the defining plays, the things that stick in your memory about a guy. That sticks in my memory 100%. I think he's going to be an elite player. I know that there's concerns about the medical history of this kid, but he's an elite pick in the middle of the draft in the first round.
Definitely. All right, let's see what the next page brings us. We saw that one already. Let's go to the pick. Kevin Jenkins, another guy that Danny's glad is off the board. He goes to the Raiders at 17. We've got Najee Harris going to the Dolphins. They want to get some weapons for Tua, and reuniting him with his former Alabama running back is probably a good choice. And Danny, there's your guy, Elijah Vera Tucker.
Yep.
Washington is going to be really happy with that guy. And then J.C. Horn, the cornerback, is going to the Falcons. So
Horn dropped a little further than I thought he was going to drop. He was a second overall corner for me, and I thought he was going to go a little bit higher than this here.
Mm-hmm. And so, in essence, that trade now for the Bears is J.C. Horn, 3 first-round draft picks, and James Daniels for Trey Lance. So that's 2 first-round draft picks, J.C. Horn and James Daniels.
Right.
We're going to pick up the pace here a little bit because we're behind. At 21, the Colts make a trade. They trade out, give it to the Saints, who had their eye on Greg Newsome, the cornerback. He's somebody that you like a lot, right, Neil?
Absolutely. Love Greg Newsome. Another Northwestern kid that does it the right way. If you compare him to those two guys above him, not as big and physically, imposing as Patrick Surtain, not as, hyper twitched up and explosive as a dude like J.C. Horn, but he's probably the best collection of overall tools and traits that is on this board at that position. And in terms of football players, he's one of my favorites in this class.
And then a bit of a surprise, the Green Bay Packers move up to draft that linebacker from Notre Dame. You think this is a good trade for the Packers? They, again, don't help Aaron Rodgers with a receiver. They make this trade with the Titans to pick J.O.K. What do you think, Danny?
Yeah, this is a good trade for the Packers. It's a bad trade if you're a Bears fan. You're going to see this guy twice a year playing in that green and gold. Yeah, this kid's a defensive weapon, man. I mean, he doesn't have the size that you're looking for necessarily as a middle linebacker or inside linebacker, but this kid's so versatile in terms of ability to drop back in coverage. He's got a freakish athletic ability. His first step quickness and burst is ridiculous for a linebacker that size. This guy can be used off the edge as from the 2-point stance to be able to rush the passer. Like I said, drop back in coverage. It's a good move for the Packers. It might not make Aaron Rodgers happy, but it's a hell of a talent that defensive player that just brought it onto their team. Like I said, as a Bears fan, you're not gonna like seeing this guy playing for the Packers twice a year.
Yeah, I was looking at some Pro Football Focus metrics on JOK, and it was amazing how many times they had him line up guarding the slot receiver. I mean, he's essentially a hybrid player who can do it all. Caleb Farley goes to the Jets at number 23. I actually thought that he could potentially fall out of the first round because of concerns with his back. I see you nodding your head, Danny.
Yep. That's the talk. Yep, that's the talk that he might need a third surgery on the back. Again, is that just rumors being put out there, just fake news because they want the player to drop? Who knows? But that's the concern now within the community.
Yeah, and then no surprise here. There's been a lot of reports that the Saints are really have an eye on a running back, and they probably weren't happy when Najee Harris went off the board, but they've got to be happy that Travis Etienne is still there. You like Travis Etienne, Danny?
I like Travis Etienne, but I'm kind of surprised because I agree. I think they wanted Najee Harris, and the fact that they bypassed Javonte Williams, who's more of their kind of running back in terms of in between the tackle, pounded out guy. The guy's physical, terrific contact power, contact balance, be able to bounce off of defenders and get those hard yards. I think that would have been a guy they might have gone for instead of an Etienne. Etienne is a talented, gifted running back. He gives you that speed element, and he's very talented in terms of out of the backfield as a pass catcher, as is Williams as well, Javonte Williams. So a little bit of a fit, raised my eyes in terms of fit, but definitely he's my second-rated. Etienne is my second-rated running back in this draft class. Williams is third. So I just thought for the Steelers, the way they like to play, like to grind things out, I thought Williams might have been the pick there. But Etienne's a hell of a talent too.
He really is. And then we go to pick number 25. The Jaguars, in need of some defensive line help, probably get the only interior defensive lineman worthy of a first-round pick. It's Christian Barmore. Neil, your thoughts on the Alabama interior lineman?
Yeah, he's certainly the only dude that I had on my board as a first-round guy. 6'4", 310. 10 hands, 31 and a half arms, massive 84 3/8 wingspan. Only 1 year as a full-time starter, but an absolute backfield disruptor. I love this kid's explosive first step, fluid AA, the quickness, lateral agility, strength, and power. Has all the pass rush moves, gets separation. He's had an ability to stop the run that's improved. He's more dominant a presence than pretty much everybody else in this draft class at that position. Definitely a 3, maybe a 5, running a 4.93 and a 4.95 at 310 pounds. Absolutely impressive. Love this kid. First round all the way.
Excellent. At 26, Kadarius Toney, the wide receiver, going to the Cleveland Browns. They are in need of some wide receiver help. Not a surprise here, right, Danny?
Yeah, Kadarius Toney was projected to go in the bottom half of the first round. Again, this is a talented kid from Florida. Gives you the return ability. It gives you, he's not a true, X or whatnot, but he's a guy that can play all over the field, can be on the slot, could be lined up in the backfield. You can give him the ball on those quick hitters, any jet motion sweep, hand on the ball and let him do his thing. So a kid that's lethal and dangerous in the open field. Again, another one when he gets out there, he gets moving. His contact balance, his power to bounce off of guys is pretty impressive down the field. So, this is the area he was supposed to go at. Cleveland, though, I don't know if receiver was a need for them. However, there's talk about maybe moving on from Odell Beckham Jr. So this could be a kid that could fill some of those receptions that would go towards his way. So that's a good pickup for the Browns.
And I know you guys weren't really impressed with the safety class, but I've heard some reports that this guy is head and shoulders the best safety of the group. And I know you guys don't necessarily agree with that.
He was my top safety in this
He
class.
was your tops, yes. And I now recall that he wasn't necessarily. I think he was in Neil's top 4, if I recall correctly. Trevon Mooring. Why? What is it about Mooring, Neil, that you weren't totally pleased with?
He was my number 3. I had 3 guys at the top that I was deliberating between: Javon Holland from Oregon, Andre Cisco from Syracuse, Trevon Moore from TCU. The thing about those previous 2 guys was the certain things about their traits just made them more valuable to me. That's not to say I don't like Trevon Moore. I think he's a really interesting kid. You know, he won the Jim Thorpe Award last year in 2020. I love his length and his body type. You know, he's got pretty decent range and movement skills, smooth in his back pedal like a corner, and floats around the field. He was versatile in his role for TCU as well. So, I mean, he's a guy that you can really load up his plate in the passing game. The ability to play the run really needs work for me. But he also lacks hard-hitting physicality in his game as well. He must improve to be more reliable as a tackler. I was really big on guys' ability to tackle in the open field in his class, since we have a guy back there playing free safety that likes to grab at air. Tackling in the open field was big to me. Trevon Moore, lacked it at times. His coverage ability, though, shouldn't go unnoticed. The Oklahoma game last year I talked about when we talked about safeties on Monday. The Oklahoma game last year, for everybody that hasn't watched that game, go back and watch that game. A perfect dichotomy of the snapshot of what Moore is at his best, I feel. He was targeted several times, stood tall, several PBUs. He's got a high level ability to mirror and redirect with the receiver, and seems to have an excellent awareness and instinct. So it's not that I don't like the kid; it's just I like the other 2 guys, ahead of him more. But I put down a no. Like if he lasts by the end of, if he lasts past the second round, I'd be highly shocked. And obviously he's going here in the first round.
Yep. All right, and then to finish this page out, it's that trade that the Saints and Colts made. The Colts traded back and are still able to get an offensive lineman that they had an eye on, and that's Alex Leatherwood from Alabama. Danny, your thoughts on Leatherwood?
Yeah, I'm a little surprised they went Leatherwood here. I think that's a little bit rich for me. I think I had him more in the second round area. For me, he was like the 7th or 8th. I think 9th offensive lineman, offensive tackle on my board. So the kid, for me, I think he could play left tackle. There's some question marks in terms of if his best position might be left guard. I think he had a solid week down in Mobile, and you hear other scouts saying that he got really beat up in their eyes. So definitely a surprise. But they needed a left tackle. Their mainstay left tackle Anthony Costanzo went ahead and retired this year. So this is a position of need. So they went ahead and they filled it with a kid they feel can come in and probably be ready to start from day one.
Excellent. And then to finish up the first round, that trade with the Packers, the Titans got the 29th overall pick. And ironically, they pick a wide receiver for their quarterback, and it's Elijah Moore. Neil, what's your scouting evaluation on Moore, the wide receiver from Mississippi?
This is one of those dudes that me and Danny were super far on the opposite ends of the spectrum with. I was not a fan of this kid. He is another one of these hybrid type dudes that play a wide receiver with a running back skill set. Granted, he's small, he can run, he can separate, he does have natural hands, has some electric plays on highlight tapes. I don't see him as a special enough athlete or route runner, though, to consistently get separation. To me, he's a straight line guy. I think NFL DBs are going to be able to hang with him. He's not consistent on every play. I'm not impressed with his route running. Other guys are sharper and have more speed and explosion climbing. And I don't see the effort between plays either. Poor selling routes and run plays. To me, it just goes through the motions, man. He's virtually non-existent or disinterested as a blocker as well. He's not going to put his helmet on anybody. But, the one time he does, funny enough, against Alabama, he gets flagged for a illegal blindside block where he threw a light shoulder into the guy. So I'm not a big fan of some of his decision-making at the back of the end zones historically as well. So, he and, hilariously enough, he and Marco Wilson from Florida came from the same high school, and both of them are really poor in celebrating at the most inopportune times.
There you go. You want to say anything about more, Danny, before we
Yeah,
move?
Neil's right. We disagree so much on this kid. I mean, he talks about his route running. I think he's going to be a weapon in the slot. He's a slot receiver, and I see him when I put on his tape. I see him creating separation. His double moves, like there was a game against Vanderbilt. He just blows the corner away, and then he creates big time separation. He'll also help you in the return game as well. Another one I believe is a former running back coming out of high school, so he's got those running back skills as well. So another one of those guys that get the ball in the open field on these quick hitters and let him do his thing. A little bit surprised that he went here ahead of a guy I had higher in Terrace Marshall Jr. I know the Titans they lost Corey Davis in free agency, so I figured they want to replace that. And Davis had a little more size, much more size than Elijah Moore, so I figured Marshall could fit in there nicely in Davis' spot. But they ended up going with the quicker, shiftier player.
All right, let's see how the first round finishes up. There's Aziz Ojulari, who you guys spoke very highly of. He goes to the Buffalo Bills to strengthen up that defense. And then a bit of a surprise, I thought, Gregory Rousseau at the edge, but there's some reports that they really think that he's a good scheme fit for the Ravens. And then the Bucks finish up with the first round with getting more protection for Tom Brady, Landon Dickerson from Alabama. Guys, your thoughts on these final three picks of the first round?
Well, for me, Aziz Ojulari and Rousseau, I think probably should be flipped because I think scheme fit. They probably, Rousseau fits better with the Bills and Ojulari fits better with the Ravens. For me, Ojulari is an outside linebacker. The kid has an electric first step off the edge. He's got the bend to be able to bend the corner and get underneath the pads of an offensive tackle and get to the quarterback. I think potentially he could end up being the best pass rusher out of this entire draft class when it's all said and done. Ojulari, that is. So Rousseau is a guy. I don't see him as an outside linebacker unless they're going to add weight to him and play him as a 5 technique, which is kind of far-fetched in my opinion. However, he's a guy that basically a 1-year wonder in Miami, opted out last season after a tremendous year in 2019. He was a guy that some scouts were a little perturbed by. He showed up at the Miami Pro Day a little bit heavier than they expected him, and kind of put into question his work ethic in terms of was he working out, was he staying in shape while he was being he was opting out last season. So those two kind of surprised me. I would have flipped them because I think Rousseau is more of a hands in the dirt 4-3 defensive end, which fits nicely with the Bills. And then Leonard Dickinson, hell of a player. Love the kid's character. Love his durability. I'm not durability. Love his scheme versatility. He could play center. He could play guard. His issue for me is durability. The guy's got multiple knee injuries. He's currently he used to be at FSU at Florida State, transferred to Alabama. He's currently coming off an ACL injury right now. So ton of red flags for me with the kid. But if he stays healthy, you have a future captain. The Buccaneers here have a future captain on their offensive line. The kid's a hell of a character, a guy that's going to give us 100% at every snap. Hell of a ball player. It's just the medical red flags scare me.
Neil, you want to take a look at these players real quickly and offer up a thought or two?
Yeah, Ojulari, he's a guy that's shot up rapidly, huh? A guy that, for his size, has great strength and power against big bodies, fights through blocks, can run the hoop, loves the bull rush and the shock, very smart player, great dexterity. Tennessee and Auburn were awesome games to watch on him last year. If guys want to get a really good, full frame shot of what Aziz can do. Gregory Rousseau was actually the for a long time the number one edge rusher on my board. He was a guy whose characterization I called a creature. Some of these guys are creatures. They're avatars. And Gregory Rousseau to me was one of those dudes. If you watch his 2019 film, he's the length, he's loose, he's flexible, he's bendy. Young as a pass rusher still, he's still got a ways to go to be elite. But he shows good hands. He's strong against the run. He sets the edge, uses his arms to create space, and with good functional strength as well. He can push bigger bodies around, keeps his feet moving. Looks to have really good football intelligence as well. Down there at Miami, he was multiple. They used him inside, outside. He can play and move in space. He's got a super, super high ceiling. And from early season reports of, phone calls I made, he really checks out on character. He's a plus character guy. So I was a big fan of Greg Rousseau until Jalen Phillips came and swooped in and took my top spot. In terms of Landon Dickerson, I absolutely love this kid. I had him as my number one interior offensive lineman in whole, not let alone center on my board. Obviously, the ACL kind of makes you squeamish a little bit, but this kid just loves to play ball. He loves to compete. Was hurt with a torn ACL, but wanted to suit up for the title game anyways. And when I went in, I think for the final snap, I absolutely love that about him. This kid wants to play hurt. He wants to be available. He wants to just compete and win and be with his teammates. It's just how will he recover from the knee? It's just the biggest thing. Where would he fall if he fell? Would he be one of these guys that just started rolling down the opposite side of the mountain, and the momentum carried him into the second round or third round? But obviously not. Tampa Bay made a great decision, taking a guy with size, length, toughness, physicality, a team captain guy, leadership, intelligence, about as much of a full package guy as you can get, and the best cartwheeling inside offensive lineman on my board.
Excellent. Now we move to round 2, and we have got the 52nd pick of round 2. Let's see how this plays out. The first 5 picks of that round, the Jags go with the cornerback, Elijah Molden. There goes your guy, Danny. Asante Samuel is the 34th pick. The 35th pick of to the Falcons goes Jason Owe, the edge player. The Dolphins at 36 picked the offensive tackle Samuel Cosme. I was hoping that he might be there for the Bears. At 37, edge player Joe Tryon. And then at 38, the Bengals picked the offensive lineman out of Michigan, Jalen Mayfield. Neil, your thoughts on anything stand out there? Any major disappointment for you?
The Jags making a really good pick with Trevor Lawrence and follow it up with a really poor pick in the second round with Elijah Molden, who has no business going on day 1 or day 2. He was a guy that we talked about during our safety show, and Danny and I just couldn't quite figure out why this guy was hyped up so much. I mean, you put on the film, he's short, he's stubby. Yes, he makes a lot of plays, but he doesn't bring anything in the way of physical traits or athletic traits that make him this special to go ahead and be taken this high. So that was a odd pick to me. Love Asante Samuel in terms of, I talked about Greg Newsome being awesome. One of my favorite football players in this draft. Asante Samuel's right up there, like just underneath him in terms of the cornerback spot. Love Samuel Cosme. Watching this guy as big as he is, polling is exciting. Joe Tryon, I am so much higher on Joe Tryon than a lot of other guys. I absolutely love this dude. I think he could be a potential rock star as an edge rusher. I had him as for the longest time, my number 2 edge rusher. He ended up being my number 3 behind the 2 Miami kids. But man, I just love how multiple this kid is. He plays both ends. He's up and down, outside linebacker, inside linebacker. He's got lots of juice, very twitchy, very explosive get off, and shows the ability to get pushed on offensive linemen. His natural bending the edge, changing direction, closing the quarterback with pace and pursues downfield. He's got spider qualities to me. He's a guy with multiple agility. He's just a straight up disruptor. Yeah, I absolutely love that pick. They got a steal right there. I think he was a first round guy in my opinion.
And for me, of the guys, I'll make it real quick and short here. Of the 2 guys that really hurt me in terms of being off the board for us, it would be obviously Samuel Jr. I feel he's a cornerback that's twitchy, smart, instinctive. Guy's tough, competitive. The guy will come down and hit you, make tackles in the open field, can cover you in the back end. As like I said, instincts to be able to turn around and locate the football while downfield in coverage. Samuel Cosme is another guy I was targeting for an offensive tackle position as well. He's a true left tackle, athletic. He's got a little bit of mean streak to him. He'll go ahead and bury guys and finish them off as well. So those guys, those names just went off. The only one those 2 really disappointing me that they're off the board right now.
Yep. Somebody in the chat room says we should cover the draft live. Guess what? We will be here live.
Hey!
Don Buffon will be sitting in this anchor desk, and the analysts, of course, will be here. Danny Shimon and Neil Stopchinski will be providing all the analysis you need. Everything, of course, from a Bears perspective, just like we're doing with this mock
Make
draft.
sure to join us tomorrow night. We'll be here doing this again.
That's right, at 7
Absolutely.
p.m. Central. All right, let's look at the next 5 guys. It's the Panthers going with a Notre Dame offensive lineman, Liam Eichenberg. The Broncos pick a cornerback, This despite them having 2 starters. Now Kyle Fuller is over there, but apparently there was concerns about depth at that position, so that's why they've gone for controversial cornerback from Kentucky, Kelvin Joseph. The Detroit Lions go linebacker, Zavon Collins. The Giants take the Senior Bowl star, Quinn Miners. And then the 49ers go with edge rusher Carlos Basham Jr. Danny, your thoughts on these 5?
Eichenberg breaks my heart. Once Cosme went, he was my next best available left tackle, offensive tackle for us, and I think he would have been to come in. He's a guy that could have been for me as a plug and play starter. You could have plugged him in week 1 and put him at right tackle, and you'd be set there for the next 10 years. So that hurts a lot. Quinn Miners for the Giants. That's a guy. Talk about a meteoric rise in this draft process. The kid was brought on to the Senior Bowl roster by Jim Nagy. Wisconsin Whitewater is a school he went to. First day of practice, I'm watching the practice. I'm like, who is this guy with a big beer belly wearing a crop top jersey? And it's Quinn Miners, and he just goes out and he just dominates. I'm talking about dominates the rest of the week. One-on-ones, he's burying guys that are going to go high in this draft, defensive lineman, and then during the week he shows his versatility. Go ahead and snap, play center, guard and center. And then I broke his wrist in one of the practices and continued to practice as well. So showed that toughness as well. So absolutely love this kid. Second round might be a bit too high because of the step up in level of competition, but I'm not surprised he went here. He's a guy like, again, I don't know if he's a plug and play player for the Giants next year, but definitely a guy that I would not put anything past him in terms of coming in, competing, working his ass off. And if he starts next year, I won't be surprised.
I love Quinn, man. I absolutely love that kid. You know, with offensive linemen, to me, outside the obvious things, I mean, the intangible things that they all need to have is the effort, the 1-2 to put guys in the dirt, toughness, the nasty. This kid's got all of it. I mean, I'm taking this kid in the second round exactly where I had him. You know, he was one of the top 45 guys on my board. He went exactly where I wanted him to go. If I'm if I'm in the GM seat, absolutely love this kid. He wanted to play so bad in that game that they had to pull him off of the field so that he didn't injure himself further. And then consequently he wasn't able to do much more in the pro day setting after that. But man, that kid is just a rock star. I love the way that he plays the game. I love his demeanor. I love his enthusiasm for the game of football. He's a little kid out there having fun, brother.
Do you guys do yourself a favor? YouTube him working out during the pandemic, and you'll see he's got this like lumberjack
Rocky workout.
In the forest. It's hilarious. The guy's a character.
He's training to beat Apollo. He's training to fight Apollo. Take down Drago.
He's the kind of guy you really would love in the Bears locker room. He's 100%. Tough. He's got a great personality and so forth. And that's actually been one of the problems with the Bears offensive line is that they're, not that they are bad people, but you need somebody who's got that Kyle Long mentality. Somebody who's going to pick up a helmet and bash somebody else over the head and kick them.
A few screws loose up there, right?
Yeah, you need at least one guy on the offensive line to provide that kind of machismo, and and a guy like Quinn would have been perfect for that. All right, any other comments there before we go to the next page?
Well, I mean, the 2 guys in that 5 I didn't have on my board, and I had another guy in the previous 5 I didn't have on my board too in my top 100. Carlos Basham, Boogie, only because he's just not a fit. Kind of like Kwity Paye, just not a fit. Right. I don't see him, projecting and being, an edge or an interior defensive lineman. So he's a guy that just, gets hung out to dry. Kelvin Joseph sounds like he's more interested in being a rapper than he is playing football. Out on that all the way. I want guys that football is what they love to do, and that's what they're going to be here for, and not spend more time writing down their lyrics than they are playing the game, practicing their craft. And Eichenberg going at 39 again, like Danny said, that's an absolute heartbreaker.
Now, in the next page, the Cowboys start things off at number 44 with a guy that I really loved at the Senior Bowl. He was one of my favorite players at the Senior Bowl. That's the safety, Richie Grant.
Number 2.
The Jaguars picked that tight end, probably the second-ranked tight end on a lot of boards. Pat Freiermuth. Did I say that correctly, guys?
Freiermuth,
yeah. He's my 3rd tight end, but yes.
There you go. And then the Patriots picked Nick Bolton, who I know a lot of people in the chat room were fans of, a kid from Missouri. The Chargers go for the wide receiver, Rashard Bateman. I'm a little surprised with that pick. And then the Raiders pick Eric Stokes, who was not, I think it was Neil's top 100. So, guys, tear that apart.
Yeah, Richie Grant, for me, was my second highest rated safety on the board. A guy that, again, I agree with you, Aldo, down to the Senior Bowl in Mobile, Alabama, really showed out his coverage ability, former corner, and showed that ability as coming down and covering guys in one-on-one. Gives you, is not a physical presence, not a guy that's going to be someone's going to be, intimidating receivers going across the middle, but he's more of a coverage safety guy. Will come in and, like I said, cover the slot, carry tight ends down the seam and be able to cover running backs coming out of the backfield as well. So it gives you that type of versatility. Nick Bolton, we talked about real quick, in our inside linebacker position, the guy's a hitter, inspirational story off the field in terms of his family struggles with cancer and all that stuff. So you definitely root for the kid, instinctive as heck. But for me, he was a little bit undersized, and I thought right now second round might be a little bit too rich for him. But definitely a guy that you could have used here at inside linebacker. Pat Fryermuth, he was my third tight end. A kid that I believe played half the season and ended up opting out the rest of it. Just a guy that's going to probably be lined up in line as a wide tight end, but can be flexed out in the slot. Is probably better as a pass catcher than as a blocker. But for me, the kid from Miami, Brevin Jordan, is probably a more explosive player down the field. And Rashard Bateman is a receiver that I know a lot of people like that I wasn't really high on, especially for the Bears. I think he does a very similar thing than what Allen Robinson does. So I think what the Bears were looking for, at least what I'm thinking the Bears are looking for, are speedier, quicker, shiftier, more explosive players than Rashard Bateman. So again, Grant is a guy that I really have my eye on in terms of safety, but I probably wouldn't be going safety here in the second round. So.
I had Grant a little bit further on down. I had him as maybe a fourth round type of guy, just because I wasn't fired up about his size. I wasn't fired up about his ability to tackle in space. I wasn't fired up about his ability to recover, and sometimes what's the key note that I had on him? Sometimes it seemed like he struggled changing direction, played high and narrow, looked kind of cumbersome in movement. So. I think he's still got a little bit of ways to go to be a big time contributor at the NFL level. Definitely more of a ball hawker than a run supporter, 100%. More of a hitter than a tackler. More of a zone player than a man to man. But he's a guy that wants to be the defensive quarterback. He's got that leadership. Want to be the man. Kind of thing about him. So I do like that. Fryermuth I really liked. He was my number 4 tight end. Big and long and has tons of flexibility. He can play the Y. He can play the F. You can put him wherever you want. Not nearly as athletic as the 3 other guys I had on my list, being Tremble and Brevin Jordan, and then obviously if you want to call that freakazoid Kyle Pitts a tight end, he's obviously the number 1, but he's really, really interesting. He can create a ton of mismatches. Nick Bolton, hit stick guy, wasn't fired up on his size and his versatility. I thought his liability was playing in space. So I had him a little bit further on down my list. And that was the one guy I think that across the board, a lot of teams probably had him all over the place. Mm-hmm. Some teams probably had him second. Some teams probably had him fifth. Some teams probably had him 10th. I had him, I think, 9th. And I've even sort of edited that since last time we talked about him, because I found another guy that plays safety currently that could fit a little bit better than Nick Bolton can. Rashard Bateman, exactly what Danny said. He's exactly what we have right now. He's very natural as a ball catcher. But he does a lot of things of what we currently have, and we don't need that. Assuming that we're going to keep Allen Robinson around, which we're idiots if we don't. They're GM over there in the corner.
We keep proving today he hasn't listened to us, so I mean,
yeah, right, yeah, doesn't matter what we say. Eric Stokes, I love. Eric Stokes is a guy that he's got elite explosivity. He was a guy that I had number. See on my corner list, he was just outside the first round. I had him at number 5 as a second round pick, a little bit higher than where he actually got taken. But he's got ideal size, a great length. He can win one-on-one with his top class athletic ability. Extremely competitive, quick and loose, closing burst, borderline elite ability to change direction. He's not too far off from some of these other guys that have already been taken. Talking about Fairley, talking about J.C. Horn, guys with just elite quicks and explosion and ability to explode out of your breaks. His reaction time is almost nil. He's got a little bit of ways to go, a little bit more development, but he brings physicality. He makes tackles in the open field, challenges the run game. He can project on the island or inside a nickel to me. So I'm really amped about that pick. I'm kind of halfway upset he's off the board.
All right, let's see. We've got 3 more picks before the Bears select. Let's see who the Cardinals pick at number 49. It's Melifonwu, the cornerback. The Dolphins go with the interior lineman, Creed Humphrey, who'll play center in the NFL. And then Jamin Davis, the linebacker, goes to the Washington football team. And guess what? The Chicago Bears are now on the clock. I asked our friends in the chat room, who would you like to see at number 2? In the second round, Toa says Dylan Randu.
We're going back to Fargo, guys.
There you go. Wouldn't that be cool? Let's see who else we got. Detroit wants Joey Harrington. We got this guy, Don Burr, who comes in because I guess he's got nothing better to do in Detroit or wherever he lives than to come and harass our Bears fans here. But I think that's the only one that Trey McKitty, Travis Dunaway says, is a sleeper at the tight end. I wouldn't pick him.
But not right here. Not right here. Number second round. I mean, right now for me, the highest rated player on my board currently actually is Elijah. Terrace Marshall Jr., the receiver out of LSU. Mm-hmm. So he's a guy that's got some size and speed ability. Guy with productive with some crappy quarterback play at LSU. He's a guy that for me will be a high in consideration right now. Mm-hmm. The other position, like I talked about, is Dylan Radunz from North Dakota State, left tackle. Could play some right tackle as well if you want to start him off there initially, and then eventually once you out of the Leno contract, you can probably move him over to left tackle. And the other position I would consider right now would be cornerback, and the highest rated cornerback is Paulson Adebo from Stanford. He's my 6th rated cornerback. He's a guy that opted out last season. He's a kid about 6 feet 6'1", 200 plus pounds, has some range, has some stiffness in his hips, so he's not going to be a guy that's going to be all loosey goosey like some of the other quarterbacks like J.C. Horn and some of the other corners that we've been talking about. However, he's got size. He's a guy that is going to be a good, solid press cornerback. So, he's, again, we're going 6th cornerback on my list. We're going Radunz, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 7th tackle on my list, or we can go with the 5th receiver right now with Terrace Marshall Jr. Now, we got a quarterback. Do we give him a weapon in Terrace Marshall, and that if that's the way you want to go, GM, I'm all for it. Or if you want to protect them with Radunz, I'm all for it there as well. Or if you want to go and fill that need at cornerback with a guy like Paulson Adebo, or even Aaron Robinson from UCF. He's my next available corner, best available corner on my list too. He's a smaller guy, but I think he's a guy that can play on the outside, instinctive, not as long as Adebo, but a guy that can give you some flexibility in terms of playing the slot and the outside. Adebo's strictly an outside guy. So those are the names that I would bandied about here in terms of you for consideration.
Neil, you've got Jackson Carman at 29 on your top 100. You've got another intriguing name. Just saw it and I lost it.
Terrace Marshall is actually still he's a top guy left on my board as well.
Yeah. So talk to me about the guys you like for this second round pick.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been pretty adamant that the way that this draft needed to go was quarterback first round, replacement at tackle at second round. And the highest rated tackles that I have left is a couple guys that fire me up. One is Jackson Carman from Clemson. He's another one of these Swiss Army knife type of dudes that he played left tackle for a national championship outfit over there in Clemson, South Carolina. Just under 6'5", 317 pounds, which on his pro day I was very quick to note that one of the things that impresses me about a kid that looks a little bit doughy on film is that when he shows up for his pro day, the necessary weight that he needs to be. And he was noticeably 20, 30 pounds overweight on film. And he shows up to pro day, 317 pounds. That means he's serious. He's about business. He's ready to rock and roll. I love this kid. I think that, he can be, a protector on the island outside, protecting the blind side, or he could be a guy that can move inside as well, playing, interior offensive line at the left guard position. So, he's a guy that gives you a ton of versatility as well. I love this kid. And then Dylan Radunz is the other one who, if we go ahead and take both the kids from Fargo, 100% about it. I mean, watching this kid play and watching him run downfield, energy, passion, athleticism, length. He's a guy that if you watch those one-on-one battles, during Senior Bowl week, man, this kid can set. He's got functional strength. He can mirror the edgiest of edge rushers on the edge, and he's a guy that would effectively fill that role if we end up getting rid of letting go of Charles Leno at some point in the near distant future. Obviously, he's going to come in, probably be the right tackle starter right away. I actually love Dylan Radins here. He was definitely a day 2 guy for me. If we go in terms of corners, the highest rated corner left on my board is Andre Sisco. Or actually, no, not Andre Sisco.
Safety.
Yeah, he's a safety. I was thinking Ifatu, but he was taken. The highest rated corner left on my board would be. Let's see, where am I at here? I'm going down the board now, guys. All the guys I like to take. Aaron Robinson is probably the next one left. Aaron Robinson, wouldn't be upset about it. I think second round is a little bit too high, but I did have him as a day 2 guy. So
here's my concern, guys, is that I'm afraid that if we don't pick a corner here, that we're not going to get anyone that is worthy of considering competing for a starting job.
Right.
And yet, the offensive line is really what I would like to target here. So I know that on June 1st, there's going to be some veteran cornerbacks out on the street. Maybe going with Dylan is the best choice. Solidifies the offensive line, gives you a guy for the future. We just lost James Daniels in a trade. I'm also, I know Neil is not as high as on him as Danny and I are, but I like Paulson Adebo. What is it about Paulson that you don't like, Neil?
Well, we talked about it on show on Monday, not on Monday, last week.
Right.
Paulson Adebo, let's see, I had him as my, going down the list here, he was my number 12 corner. I had him as a 4th round guy, as a developmental guy. And, the thing about him is, given his productivity and his athletic trait, he's an interesting take to experiment with at cornerback. But ultimately, I think he could be more useful in another position like safety or maybe a hybrid in a system that uses a hybrid. He had a really good 2018 season where all this, all this draft hype started to develop, for the kid. He had a season-ending injury in 2019. Even before the season-ending injury, his production significantly dropped off. It was a very considerable disappointment coming off of 2018. But I do like the kid I do like the kid is hyper competitive. He's super aggressive player. Which is both a good and bad thing because while he does a great job of mixing it up with wide receivers, jamming at the line, it also causes him to overrun coverage, missing a double move, giving up big plays. And, I love him in run support and on blitzes. The kid plays his ass off, close to the line of scrimmage. Playing forward for this guy is lethal because of his speed and his closing burst. Not a guy that will light up a ball carrier when he comes fast with conviction. Conversely, will whiff on tackles. In coverage, he's got quick feet, which allows him to hang with routes, but does look a bit clunky in space. And with his bend and his technique and his reactionary athleticism, he can easily cross over. Doesn't have the kind of ability to recover like the elite guys in this class. He lacks the smoothness and backpedaling in transition. Instinctively, he struggles at times getting his head around and finding the ball. But, he's got traits. I just think that, a second-round pick on this kid is way too rich for me. I think he's more of a developmental guy that needs work. It's not ready to come in and play right away. Taking him this early would concern me.
You see the hate that I'm getting in the chat room?
No.
Steven says, breaking mock future news. James Daniels goes to the Hall of Fame as a Falcon. Aldo voted most hated general manager in Bears history. I love it. I love it, Steven.
Awesome. Keep it coming, guys. Keep it coming. Yeah. If you're thinking corner, Aldo, right now, Adebo is a sixth rated corner on my board. The next rated guy is 8th. That's Aaron Robinson. And then to break it down for you, simple. Aaron Robinson can play outside and can play nickel. Adebo is more of an outside guy. He's got the length. He's got the speed. His ability to transition quickly and come downhill and attack anything underneath him is quick. Robinson has shown the ability to go ahead and be more of a sideline, probably a better tackler in the open field. I'd say maybe Robinson right now is than Odebo.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you go in corner, I think those are two guys you got to think about. And I think if you want to go receiver, it's got to be Terrace Marshall. And if you want to go offensive line, it's Dylan Radunz. Those are your choices, I think.
For going best available, Terrace Marshall is both
the best available. Yeah,
on both of our lists. I can't believe he's lasted this far.
Right.
That's absurd.
Man, this is tough, guys. I don't think I want this job. I'll tell you one thing, though. Next year, we're going to do it where we do the first round on one night, and then we'll do it just like the NFL. Do a second day, round 2 and 3, and then a third show for day 3, because we're rushing through this, and we could spend so much time on this. I gotta tell you, I think I agree with Jimmy. I agree with Hugh. I think it's Dylan. Gotta go offensive line. It's North Dakota State day at Hallis Hall. So
you're the king of Fargo now.
Yeah, I am.
Bison, baby.
I think I'll go vacation there now. By the way, great TV series if you've ever seen it. All 3 seasons of Fargo, one of the best TV series I've ever seen. All right, so here's what we're going to do now. We're not going to go through the process of mocking round 3 or any of the other mocks. What I'm going to ask the guys to do is to take some time. We'll run some commercials, take some time to identify targets for round 3 and identify targets for day 3. And so I'd love to finish up within the next 30 minutes. We'll run about 4 or 5 minutes of commercials, take a look at your list. And then when we come back, we'll talk about targets for round 3 and targets for day 3. All right, guys?
Right on.
All right. Everybody stay with us. We got some important announcements here. And if you're listening to the audio podcast, don't worry. I'm going to cut out all this music and we'll go straight to what you want to hear. Let me roll some commercials here.
Lowry can be a more dynamic scorer. One of the things that we've harped on this year is the lack of shot creation from him. We haven't seen it as consistently as we'd like to.
When you come from Finland and you go to college and you don't work on those things because you're just so much better than everybody, you're so used to being able to shoot your 3 whenever you want it, you can fall into a lull in your working on your craft because it's worked for you. What you've been doing has worked. So why should I change it? You know, and there's only so many guys like that come into the league that are like, man, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough yet. I need to work on this. I need to work on that. And there are guys that will come in the league and be like, you know what? I got here doing what I do. Why am I going to change it? Sometimes guys got to be punched in the mouth with some real
criticism. Is not hate, and praise is not fandom. When I'm criticizing Lowry, it's because I think he's better.
guys, it's Peggy Kaczynski. I retired early from my 20-something career as a sportscaster, covering the Bulls, the Bears, the Blackhawks, the Cubs, the White Sox, and really every other college and high school team in Chicago. So what do you do after that? Well, you start a podcast. That's what I did with my teenage son, Jason. And the result is The Sportscaster and Her Son. Yes, I'm the baby boomer, a mom. We don't get along. We don't have a lot in common, but we both share a love for sports. And we always have great sports conversation. Even better, our guests in the interviews. So come check us out. We're on Podbean and the Barroom Network, or really wherever you get your audio. The Sportscaster and Her Son podcast. See you there.
Look, I don't mean any disrespect. He just didn't play that well. Not for a guy of his caliber.
If they don't run the ball here, I'm going to vomit. I swear to God.
I don't really have any recollection of that at all, but I guess perhaps I blacked it all out.
You know, they won, but I'm going to be miserable all week because they stunk. That is just a small morsel. Hey, there's Ryan Pace. That's just a small morsel of the programming that we have here at the Barroom Network. Over the last year, we've transformed ourselves into an all sports, all Chicago sports network, but even more than Chicago sports. If, for instance, you've seen our Bar Down Blackhawk show, those guys talk about NHL hockey from A to Z. They spend about a half of the show talking Chicago Blackhawks. Today they had Carmen DeFalco from ESPN 1000, who's a huge Blackhawks fan. They also spent some time talking about the NHL. They got some thoughts in on this upcoming draft. They talked about the White Sox. Carmen's a big fan of the White Sox and so forth. And we've got other shows. We've got a new baseball show coming up. I'm going to we're going to announce that tomorrow. So all I'm going to say is we've got a new baseball show coming up. And those of you who have followed us for a long time know that we have an association with the Friendly Confines, a Chicago Cubs podcast. Well, they're bringing their show now to video. So they're going to do a special Friendly Confines extra innings on video on Monday nights right after South Burb's Hitman. So we'll have a White Sox and then Cubs show on Monday night. We're just expanding. We're doing all sorts of really cool things. I hope that you enjoy some or all of our programming and that you let people know. And our swag shop is now open for business. You can help us keep the electricity burning behind me by purchasing some things. And it also goes to pay for some of the expenses and for some of the time put in by guys like Danny Shimon and Neil Stapchinsky, because those guys are the absolute best. They work so hard to get us to this point, and I'm really proud to be associated with them. These guys really have been a godsend to me. This is a show that I've been dreaming about for years to do, and Danny and I started it. This is our third year now, Danny?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. And it was just a godsend that Neil came to us and joined the team. They've been doing a great job all season. I'm sure that you're delighted with their evaluations. They're not so delighted with me being the general manager. I think they want Badge back for next season to make the picks, or they'll make them themselves. We'll figure something out. But if Trey Lance ends up being Patrick Mahomes then you'll forgive me.
Hey, I had a first round grade. I'm telling you, I'm not upset. I'm just disappointed we didn't go with Mac Jones, because I wanted quicker results on the field. But Trey Lance, like we kept talking about earlier, has the biggest ceiling of all of them. You could going and getting a guy that could potentially be a superstar for you.
Jimmy, Jimmy says that soccer is the best sport in the world. And Neil, I know that you're interested. You love soccer, don't you?
I do appreciate random commentary. I really do. Jimmy Christ, Jesus' great grandnephew. I love soccer, boys. I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you. I was about ready to fly overseas and join a picket when these assholes money grabbing sons of bitches over there decided they wanted to go ahead and join form a super league. Like that is not what soccer is about. Soccer is a fans game, guys. Soccer is a fans game, and it's one of the only sports in the world where money doesn't get in the way, really. I mean, it's starting to become a little bit too much of an obstacle for a lot of sides to be able to compete at a high level. But at the same time, the beautiful thing about soccer is that you can have Leicester City with 15,000-1 odds of winning Premier League title, and they end up winning it. And it's absolutely unbelievable. It's changed the direction of that club ever since. They've been a top 5 side ever since they won. So it's amazing. I follow Borussia Dortmund is my number 1 team overseas. It started. I did not used to play soccer. I intramurally, yes, but not at a high level, not at a competition level. It's funny. Looks like you used to play soccer. Why? Because I'm a 5'10", white guy. What's that all about? What's the deal? No, kidding. But yeah, I follow a lot of Bundesliga. Borussia Dortmund is my number 1 team overseas. It actually started because of Christian Pulisic. There was a point where it dropped off the radar for me, and it was when U.S. men's national team really decided to really drop the ball for about 10 years on with their dealings of their international squad.
Let's go, man. It's a draft show. Let's go.
Yeah, sorry. I just get into it. Love soccer, boys. Let's move forward.
If I want to fall asleep, I watch soccer.
All right. Let us talk about your targets now for round 3. Let's start with you, Danny. Tell me about which guys you have graded in that round 3 area and that you want to target if they become available.
Well, coming into tonight, obviously quarterback, offensive tackle were 2 needs I wanted. We got those in the first 2 rounds. The other ones I've highlighted on my chart here are receiver, cornerback, inside linebacker in that particular order. Edge guys, he's edge guy. You always use safety. So right now for me, I'm a little concerned with the corners. Who's going to be available for us in this next round? Are we going to get a guy that's going to be able to come in and compete? Do we want to go receiver here and add some more firepower to the offense? So far we've gone offensive with our first 2 picks. Do you want to continue that trend, or do you want to add some players here, some playmakers to an aging defense? I think that's the area I'll be concentrating on. Obviously, if a player with a higher ranking falls to us in the 3rd round, that's not necessarily a corner or a receiver. I'm always open to look at that. Or always a possibility there's a trade, someone wants to come up and get somebody. I'm always open to that as well. But heading into the 3rd round at pick number 84, I believe it is. I'm looking for either a corner, a guy who can come in and compete either at nickel or compete possibly at some snaps at outside corner, or I'm looking for a playmaking receiver.
There you go. What about Neil? What do you got?
Yeah, the corner position is the next one I think I'm going to attack if I'm the GM of the Bears, and strictly because if I look at my corners list, there's really only a couple guys left here that make me feel pretty good, and that's Aaron Robinson from UCF and Keith Taylor from Washington. And I would be happy to take both those guys in the 3rd round. Aaron Robinson I have higher on my list. He's the next best available at that position. He's a guy like we were just talking about before we left. He's multiple. You can play him inside, you can play him outside, and he's a guy that has had high level production as an inside guy throughout his career at UCF with the ability to play outside. So he's a guy that you can bring in immediately to calm down the musical chairs at the nickel position, while you cross-train him to be the permanent fix at outside corner. So he's the fix there in the 3rd round for me. And if he's not there, Keith Taylor is a guy that probably won't come in and start right away, I don't suppose, but he will come in and be an immediate contributor, at least on special teams, if not on the field on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, but with Taylor, though, I think 3rd round, that's a bit too high for him. I think you're talking about day 3. You can probably move on with a kid like Taylor, who should be still out there. But in terms of day 3, are you talking about? Well, first of all, I'm sorry, Neil, Aldo, do we know who was taken or in the rest of the 2nd round or no? Okay, all right. Yeah, because I was thinking like Aaron Robinson right now is my highest rate. Well, him and Adebo are my highest rate corners as well. So if for one of those two guys are sitting there available, Terrence Marshall, according to our boards, is still out there. That's the highest rated receiver as well. Dwayne Eskridge.
If Terrace Marshall is available in round 3, I'm taking him in a heartbeat.
Yeah, that's a you jump on that.
That's an easy decision. But if it's not Terrace Marshall, I'm not sure that there's another wide receiver that'll make me. Yeah, no, I'm with you. But at this point, again, on my list, Aaron Robinson is the next corner that's going to come in and play immediately. And he's the only one left that is going to come in and play immediately. So if he's available in round 3 at pick 84, right? I'm making that pick because we got to get a guy in here that can play. This wide receivers group is like I said, during wide receiver show, I have 43 and counting draft grades on wide receivers. I think we can go ahead and get a guy that's going to come in and play immediately in the slot position down the road. I don't think that's going to be an issue, unless it's a freak beast like Terrence Marshall.
Okay. I was going to ask him, like, you're gonna bypass Terrence Marshall guy?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I just said it. If Terrace Marshall is there in round 3, that's an easy decision. I'm taking that in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But if Terrace Marshall isn't available, if it's Terrace Marshall, and then after Terrace Marshall, I have a collection of Amari Rogers, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Rondale Moore as my next collection of guys. If it's Aaron Robinson, the only functional corner left that could come and play day 1 versus 3 guys that, while they will provide an immediate fix, there's probably other guys down the road that can also do that. I'm going to take Aaron Robinson. I think that's pretty, clear and easy for me.
Right.
There you go. Luis Villasenor says that he really likes the cornerback named Tay Gowan. What do you guys know about Tay Gowan?
He's a guy that is a taller corner from UCF. He opted out this season. Didn't play much. He's an athletic kid. His tape really didn't inspire me at all when I watched a couple of his games. So for me, if you're asking me to pick between Tay Gowan and Aaron Robinson all day.
Say the same thing, Neil?
Yeah, pretty much. When I was watching Aaron Robinson, he wasn't I watched a little bit of 2019 tape too. He wasn't a guy that necessarily jumped off the screen to me. So a lot of times you can tell a big time dude when you're watching somebody else and the guy's making plays and he stands out and you ask, who the hell is that guy? Tay Gowan wasn't that guy to me. So I think if anything, Tay Gowan was a further on down the line type of guy. Another one of these guys you take to be a developmental guy, special teams guy. He's certainly not an immediate fix at a position that we need an immediate fix. That's for sure.
Jimmy likes Talanoa Hufanga and Jalen Darden, and Danny is shaking his head. No.
The safety from USC, he's a hybrid guy. He's a guy that's really like a half linebacker, half strong safety. Coverage, he's really not someone that I trust back there. So it's a hard pass for me, especially here in the 3rd round. And Jalen Darden is a smaller, I mean, he's like 5'7", 5'8", skinny wide receiver who's got some good straight line speed. But he's a guy that I'm targeting him in day 3. Hopefully either a 5th or one of those 6th round picks. He's not a guy that the 3rd round for him is too rich right now.
You agree, Neil?
Yeah, I had Hufanga late in the draft, probably a 6th round, type of guy. The thing with him is like he has a highly productive dude, like over the course of his career, especially last year in the truncated year, right? You love the effort that he plays with. Chris Gonzalez actually told me earlier today that his mentor is Polamalu. Yeah, Troy Polamalu. He does appear to have really high football intelligence, above average instincts, plays physical and rough as he possibly can, but he's just athletically limited, man.
Right.
He's quick but not fast. He's not laterally gifted. It prevents him from having range, sideline to sideline, or the ability to really react to ball carriers fluidly and explosively. He's got a hell of an injury history as well. That cut 2 of his season shorts and has lingered during off seasons. He has a collarbone, shoulder, concussion. So he's got a lot of stuff, there. Like he's an interesting dude, but he's not a guy that I'm going to worry about until we get to like the late parts of the draft where we're really talking about special teams roster fillers. Anyways.
Right. And he's a guy He's a guy that's going to make his living on special teams. I don't foresee him being a starter in the next level.
Right. Jalen Darden's interesting though. I mean, he's tiny as hell, but he's quick and he's shifting, explosive and fast, and he can get separation. He's just tiny as hell. But I mean, he's one of these guys that had rock star, video game type numbers over the course of his career in North Texas. And, he ran really well his pro day, tested really well. Again, another guy that I'm looking towards the back end of this draft. We have four picks in the 6th round, boys. So he's another one of those guys where, at that point where you get the best players available, special team studs, he's a guy that could excel in the kick return game. So possibility there for Jalen Darden.
Tay Gowan is definitely like a round 6 guy, right? Round 5, 6.
100%. Yeah.
A lot of people were talking about Eskridge, and Jeremy points out that he also can run back kicks, and he's a gunner, so he's got lots of special teams value. Where do you guys targeting Eskridge as well?
Yeah, for me, Eskridge right now. For me, I mean, if Terrace Marshall is gone, Eskridge is, I believe, actually, Rondell Moore is higher, my next highest one on my board, but Eskridge will be right behind him. So yeah, I mean, it gives you flexibility. Guy can line up in the slot. It gives you the punt return, kick return ability as well. So speed galore. These are the kind of players I've been pounding the table for the last couple of seasons. We need to get more of these guys on this roster, and Rondell Moore, Marshall, or Eskridge, all 3 of them. Different sizes. Marshall's a bigger guy, but he's got the speed. And Eskridge are more quicker, shiftier, faster guys. And again, all 3 of them, the common denominator there is speed and playmaking ability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Alex, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if Eskridge is there in round 3, I should have included him in that next cluster of receiver guys. If he's there in round 3, it's going to be hard to pass that dude up. But I also think that, in terms of taking some of these 6th round picks and trying to make something of them, if there's a way to trade up into 4, maybe get another pick in 5, and trying to get a guy like Eskridge or a guy like Rondell Moore, that'd be definitely a worthwhile use of our time and resources.
Alex Sims says, what's the worst case scenario for the 3 rounds? For him, and I'm not sure he means worst case as in bad, because this would be great if we got Greg Newsome, Cosme, and Kyle Trask in rounds 1, 2, 3. I'm not a big Kyle Trask fan.
Yeah. If you remove Kyle Trask from there and put in Terrace Marshall or something like that, I mean, then you're talking about fulfilling all 3 needs on your roster. But of course, then you're not getting your quarterback too. So
right. So you're taking Jamie Newman in day 3, perhaps, and that would really.
No, we're not.
You think I upset Neil earlier in the show? That would really upset Neil tomorrow.
No, the hell we're not. I'll sabotage that card from getting to the commissioner. Sabotage.
So yeah, Eric is saying worst case is Newsome and Cosby? No way. Steven has a question. Jamar Johnson, the safety from Indiana, is worth a pick in the lower rounds. And yeah, if you must have missed our safety show, because these guys were talking about Jamar Johnson. I think both of you guys had him in that second half of your top 10. But
I think I had him in my 6th or 7th safety.
Right.
On my top 10. I don't think Neil had him, but yeah, I mean, Jamar Johnson is
way on down my list, but go ahead.
Yeah,
sorry.
One-year starter. A guy showed some nice range, playing some single high safety. Not a finished product, but definitely a guy you can bring in as a developmental kid and a guy that can give you something on special teams. But yeah, for him, for me at least, I target him in day 3 if he's there with either the 5th round pick. I don't think they have a 4th round pick. They have a 5th round pick and they have 4 6th round pick. He probably is going to be gone by the 6th round. He's probably more in that 4th round range. So if you really want to target him, you kind of have to move up most likely to get him. But yeah, I mean, he's a day 3 guy for me, not a guy that I would probably use a day 2 pick on.
Alex is responding back to why he doesn't want Greg Newsome. He says he's not a big draft day corner in the 1st round. A lot of people are mocking Newsome to the Bears. He says that he would be upset because he doesn't like that position in the 1st round. Here's my theory on that. That is sort of like what I said earlier about wide receivers. Because this has become a passing league, the premium to me on defensive backs has increased exponentially. I mean, to me, it's now become the chicken and the egg. What do you need, a pass rush, or you need great defensive backs? Well, because quarterbacks are getting rid of the ball so quickly now.
Right.
You need defensive backs who can stay hip to hip with guys, and that way the pass rush has that second breath opportunity to get your sack. Because the defensive backs, coverage sacks now are more important than ever before, because it's almost impossible to get a regular sack because the ball is out in 2.2 seconds. And so the only, not the only time, but a lot of the times that you're getting sacks now is because the first read for the quarterback is not there. So he's got to look for that second. And that's why you need cornerbacks now more than ever. In this draft, there's only 2 cornerbacks, in my opinion, who are worthy of a first-round pick. I like Caleb Farley a lot, but that back injury, just no way am I going to spend the first round on him. But Greg Newsome and Patrick Surtain, or Certain, how do you pronounce it again? Patrick Surtain?
Surtain,
thank you. Are the 2 guys that J.C. Horn too.
J.C. Horn as well, yeah,
3 guys. So outside of that, then you're talking 3rd round caliber players, in my opinion. Am I wrong?
No, I mean, I'd say 2nd round for like a Asante Samuel Jr. I think Farley, if he drops in the 2nd round, it's probably a gamble worth taking because he's got 1st round talent. But to answer Alex's question, like you're right. You need cornerbacks. This has become such a passing league, and with the emphasis of getting the ball out of the hands quicker to offset some of the pass rushers, you need guys to be able to go up there and cover. And Greg Newsome is a terrific prospect. The only thing with him that scares me is he's missed some games in his past, so his durability concerns are something that I'm worried about. And he's not a guy that gets the interceptions, like gets a turnover. So something that was a knock that we had on Kyle Fuller early on in his career, and then ended up getting a little bit better there as well. So I think he only had 1 interception this past season. Newsome, that is. So those are my concerns with him. But in terms of being a cover corner, a guy that can come in and possibly turn into a shutdown corner in the future, the guy flips on both sides of the field. He's supposed to have instinct. He's athletic. He's got the loose hips to be able to turn, flip, and run with the receiver and stay in phase downfield. So other than those 2 things, which is durability and a lack of interceptions, Greg Newsome to me is a 1st round corner.
Eric Alley is saying that he doesn't think Kindle Vildor gets enough love. And I got to tell you, Danny Shimon's been giving him love now for over a year. So he gets a lot of love here. Neil, what are your thoughts on Vildor? You think that he can potentially be a starting cornerback with the Bears or in the NFL?
Potentially being the key word, yeah. Yeah, 100%. I liked a lot of what I saw out of the kid in the very limited amount of snaps I saw him play. Towards the tail end of the year when he was actually the starter. The one clip that always comes back to mind was how quickly he peeled off of his coverage assignment and damn near made a pick. I forget which game that was in. I'm blanking so hard right now, but it was a beautiful play. It was just sort of a caveat of what the kid's capable of, the ability to snap his hips and read what's going on, make a turnover. Unfortunately, he didn't catch the ball, but a lot of these guys are corners for a reason. But I like Kindle. I think he's got all the tools. I hope that he has really developed this offseason, both in the weight room and also in his position-specific skill set. I'm interested to see what this kid does. We're only going to have 2 preseason games this year. I'm sure he's going to get a lot of PT, a lot of reps. He's a guy that's going to contribute this fall, guys. I 100% believe that.
It's amazing at all of the crap that Greg Newsome is getting from our friends in the chat room. And
he's a Chicago kid too. Come on, let's rally behind our own.
Southside guy.
Well, and that's what somebody said, that it's the local bias. Ravi says it's the local bias.
It's not local bias. The kid's talented.
Yeah, there's national media guys or scouts are really praising Greg Newsome. I don't think it's because he's a Northwestern kid that he's getting all this praise. I think the kid really has some potential to be a lockdown cornerback. But, everybody's got an opinion regarding this. So, guys, day 3 prospects, guys that you would love, to target in that 6th round where we've got 4 picks. Or any other round, I'll throw out a name there. That cornerback that I kind of fell in love with him at the Senior Bowl, Benjamin St. Just, big, tall kid. He's about 6'1". He just was all over the place down in Mobile, and to me, he seems like he could be a really good developmental cornerback. If he's available there in the 6th round, I'm running after him.
Yeah, I like that kid. He was a kid that I talked about. I had in just outside my top 10 when we talked about corners.
Mm-hmm.
I was impressed with the plays that he made during the game. Like he was one of these dudes that did not have all that impressive of film, but you look at the numbers that he put up on his pro day, like the biggest wingspan of corners in the country at 80 and a quarter. He ran really well, 4.51. He moved really well at 6.83 cone and 4 flat short shuttle. Explosion numbers. He had a 35 vert and just under a 10 broad. So, he's got all the athletic traits. It's just, he's a dude that he grew up in Montreal. Obviously the Canadian football product is on a lesser scale than the American football product. He hasn't been playing the American game for very long. And he's a late bloomer, on top of that. And so when he was at Michigan, he didn't really have a whole lot of an opportunity to show out and show what he was able to do. And they kind of ran him out of there. I still have yet to really figure out what the deal was there, the story that came out of Michigan. I don't know if it was just the Michigan coaches just being done with the kid and just wanting him to
they wouldn't allow him to play it in terms of medical. They wouldn't.
Right. Yeah. But typically what that means is that these coaches want to find a scapegoat to run a player out the building. Right. It doesn't mean that he's medically unable to perform. It means they're just looking for a reason for the kid to say, all right, peace out. I'm going to go find someone else to play, which is what he did. And I think like 13 seconds after he put his name in the transfer portal, Minnesota called. And, Minnesota gave him an opportunity. He went there and, he looked really good in 2019. 2020 it was average, but 2019, he has some decent film. This kid's got a high ceiling. He's a late bloomer and, he's got smooth lateral agility. He's loose in the hips. He shows bursts out of his back pedal. He's a sound tackler. He's growing into the position and just give him a few more years, especially in a NFL, corner room and an NFL, nutrition, program and strength department. This kid's going to blossom. I have high hopes for this kid. I really do.
Yeah, as for me, like a day 3 guy is a small school guy. I know we've got that, small school feel for this draft so far, but Robert Rochelle from Central Arkansas. 6 feet, 193 pounds, run a 4.3 940. The kid's super quick, super athletic, 32 plus inch arm length. And this is the guy that I believe he was the guy that intercepted Trey Lance, giving him the only interception in his career ever this past season. So he's a guy that shows the ultra quick feet, the ability to come downhill, plant his feet and come attack anything underneath him. It shows, solid instincts in terms of when he's back down in downfield and coverage, turns around, looks for the football, locates the ball. So keep an eye on this kid, Robert Rochelle from Central Arkansas. You talk about day 3 prospects at corner.
What do you guys think is going to happen to Ronnie Perkins?
That's a kid I like a lot. He's not as twitchy as I like my edge guys to be, but he's definitely a guy that can bring some heat off the edge. He's got some hip stiffness, so I'm not sure if you're going to want him to drop him back in coverage. But in terms of a guy that's got some strong hands, some pop in his punch, be able to get to rock offensive linemen back, get them on their heels, and then show some ability to go ahead and turn that edge and flat to the quarterback. Ronnie Perkins is a kid that intrigues me as an edge guy, but I think he's shown enough in terms of being able to at least come in and be a situational pass rusher. That I think he's going probably late 3rd round, early 4th round area is where I think I'm targeting him. So Bears don't have a 4th round pick. We're talking about 3rd round, probably going for a cornerback, if not receiver. So I'm not sure if that's the area you want to go edge. Obviously, I feel like you can never have enough pass rushers.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if they would do that early, but he's a name that definitely intrigues me.
He's a guy that, honestly, if I'm looking at, we didn't get through all the rest of the 3rd round picks, but just looking at the guys that I had, rated high on my edge board, I still have Peyton Turner. I still have Hamilcar Rashed. I still have Joseph Osai. I still have Patrick Jones. I still have Quincy Roche. And then I have Ronnie Perkins. And so I'm thinking if we go corner/receiver in round 3, if we go for a bird in round 3, and the next pick we have is in round 5, and any one of Peyton Turner, Hamilcar Rashed, Joseph Osai, Patrick Jones, Quincy Roche, or Ronnie Perkins are available in round 5, throwing down the hammer, get him.
I'd be shocked if those guys are available around 5, especially Peyton Turner. That guy's just a beast. Now, is he going to be a stand-up rushing out of the outside linebacker out of 2-point stands? I'm not sure. He's a big guy. You might want to put some weight on him and make him a 5 technique. But man, that kid can play. It might be a little bit raw right now, but he's a guy you bring him into the pipeline, get him in that defensive line room next to Akeem Hicks, or if you want to make him outside linebacker next to Khalil Mack. And this kid has a potential to be a very damn good player for you down in the future. So Peyton Turner is a guy I'm very much intrigued at.
Peyton Turner is a dude that I dub a creature. He's an avatar. I absolutely love this kid. I had him in 2 different position groups on my sheet. You look at what he did during his pro day. I mean, those are eye-popping numbers from a length, explosion, speed, everything that he did during his pro day. And I mean, you watch him run around in film. He's one of those dudes that you bring in, you figure out a place for him to play.
Right.
You figure out a defensive scheme to get him on the field, because he's a dude that's going to make life hell for the quarterback on the other end. And you want this dude. And I had him honestly, as I just went ahead and dove deeper into my evaluation of Peyton Turner, I had him, I think, top 40 on my board. On my top 100, I should say. He was. Where is he at here?
Yeah, I saw him in the 40s, right?
He's number 31 on my board.
31, okay.
Because sometimes you just got to bring in a freak and just figure out a way to get him on the field.
Mm-hmm.
If you have to add on, 20 pounds, if you have to create a new position for him, you figure it out. He's one of those guys where you take him and you figure it out later.
Danny had him at 50.
52 for me. It was a little lower, but still, we're still talking about the same second round, third, late second, early third round range for him as well. But yeah, I absolutely love that kid's tape, and I think this guy's got potential. Again, not a finished product yet. Always can get better, obviously. But I mean, there's some intriguing players here in terms of I'm talking about inside linebacker, right? We talk about Pete Warner from Ohio State. He's the next guy on my list here. Chaz Surratt, the kid from North Carolina, still developing, but shows a ton of ability in terms of developing into a pretty instinctive inside linebacker. So those are areas we need to look at as well. So I think getting the quarterback, getting the offensive lineman, with those first 2 picks were key. Those are 2 big question marks fulfilled right now. And I think next thing is now you just go off of best available. And if that best available player fills your need, you go ahead and it's even better.
Right. Exactly. Here's one thing I want to pose to you guys. And as I went through these safeties, I started watching players that weren't necessarily high on my list at positions, but I started looking at these guys as guys that could play, potentially other positions. And the last guy, the Mr. Irrelevant on my top 100 list was Jacoby Stevens from LSU. Mm-hmm. And the reason being is because I projected him to inside linebacker. Now, my thought on him is this. All right. He's just over 6'1", 6'1 and a quarter, 216 pounds. Lengthwise, he's adequate, right? He's got just under 32 arms, just under 77 and a half wingspan. He ran a 4.63 40 as pro day, jumped 42 inches, and just under 11 foot broad. All right. 3-year starter at LSU, played really kind of, he was very multiple in LSU's defensive scheme. He played deep. He played close to the line of scrimmage. He played over the slot. He covered tight ends. He had a lot of different responsibilities. And once one of his starts actually came at wide receiver, because when he was at Murfreesboro High School, he was a star on both ends of the ball, right? Both sides of the ball. So this is a guy that, he was in high school at Mississippi State. We had him on our board at 4 different positions. That's how unique and versatile this kid was. Over the course of his career, 190 tackles, 21 and a half tackles for loss, 9.5 sacks, 4 picks, and 19 passes defensed. Mm-hmm. He's a big time leadership guy with his characteristics. He made all the calls in the defensive backfield, tested extremely well, like I just talked about, especially in explosion tests. On the field, you can see the lack of speed coming downhill and range if you're talking about him as a safety. And he lumbers a bit in his lowers if you're talking about him as a safety, not very fluid in space, all that kind of stuff. Right. Clunky backpedaling. Yeah. Transition slower than you want. But they had him playing both deep, like I said, and on the edge, in the box. He was arguably more of an effective of a player in the run, creating disruption at the line of scrimmage. Being kind of like a spider in the box a little bit. He wants to impose his physicality on the ball carrier, and really does a good job tackling, dealing with running backs and tight ends, setting the edge, operating with athletic ability and quickness in short areas. As marginal as he is in those areas, if he was playing, wide open and deep in the defensive backfield, With the football smarts, leadership, I think he's a really intriguing fit at inside linebacker, and I wouldn't be against looking at this kid, early mid day 3 as a potential fit for that position.
That's one of the guys that when I put him on, he was a hybrid. He was a guy who plays safety, but guy moved like a linebacker. So
Right.
you said 216, add about 10 pounds to him and make him 226. Make him 230, and then now you got an athletic inside linebacker. So that's what I would do. But that's a guy I would target one of those 6th-round picks. You bring this guy in,
Right.
have him just play the first couple seasons on special teams, and then just coach him up. Like I said, get him stronger, put some weight on him, some good weight on him, and then you got a potential inside linebacker there. So that's where I would see him in terms of fitting on this roster.
Yeah, interesting kid, man.
Guys, let me get that thing out of my face here.
Come on, Aldo.
We got a lot of people who have just joined us, and they want to know we got Trey Lance. How do we get Trey Lance? So let's catch them up. We made a trade with the Atlanta Falcons. Aaron Freeman, who writes about the Falcons down in Atlanta, he represented the Atlanta Falcons, and we worked out a deal where we traded 3 first-round draft picks and James Daniels, the interior offensive lineman. So the 20th pick of this year's draft, 2022 first-round pick, and 2023 first-round pick, and James Daniels for the 4th overall pick in the NFL draft. We had some tough discussions among Danny, Neil, and myself. Both of them really wanted Mac Jones. I, too, was leaning towards Mac Jones, but when I woke up this morning, my gut just told me that it was Trey Lance, who was the guy who had the higher ceiling, more upside for a longer future franchise quarterback. I felt comfortable that Andy Dalton could take the reins for this first season, and Trey can learn under Foles if he's still on the roster, and Andy Dalton. Yes, there are concerns, that have been brought up by Neil and Danny very eloquently. It's a bit of a gamble. There's no doubt about it. But when I look at the tape and when I hear the stories about how smart this guy is and how I just feel his athleticism, he had to be the guy for me. And I know Mac Jones is going to be a great quarterback. I really, really believe he is going to be a very good quarterback. He fell to number 15 in our mock draft. That means he's going to be playing for Bill Belichick. He could end up being the next Tom Brady. Who knows? That's a perfect fit for him. Really a perfect fit for him. But that was how we got to Trey Lance. You guys want to offer up some recap thoughts on that, and then we'll bid adieu and get back here tomorrow for our wall-to-wall first-round coverage?
Yeah, in terms of like the pick, I had a first round grade on Trey. We all had a great first round grade on Trey Lance. It's not the player. It more so. I wanted Mac Jones because I wanted the instant gratification. I wanted the guy that's going to get up on the field quicker and be able to produce and then justify you moving 2 additional first round picks along with your 20th pick in this year's draft to go and get him along with James Daniels. So, but Trey Lance, we talked about earlier, has a higher ceiling. The possibility anyone in this class other than maybe Justin Fields probably. So he's a talented kid. The ball just jumps out of his arm. In terms of him as a ball carrier, he's terrific. He's the closest thing I've seen to a Lamar Jackson type in terms of being a dual threat with the football. So that kid's super talented. I just don't know how ready he'll be in year 1. So now, that's twofold, right? So now it means you can't really get rid of Nick Foles because if Dalton goes down, then you got to get a veteran like Nick Foles to come in and step in. So now you're using 3 roster spots on the quarterback. The other thing is once he's ready, you got to make sure you have a plan for him in terms of, nurturing him through, because remember, it's a jump up in competition from the FCS level to the NFL level. So you have to kind of coach this kid through his first couple of seasons, I believe, but super talented guy has potential to be a all-pro quarterback, a difference maker, a game changer, if you will. But yeah, for me, the higher rated quarterback was Mac Jones, because like I said, he was more of a sure thing right now. But as you see some of these highlights, this kid, he's played in a system that has pro style concepts. He's done the waggles, he's done the play action rollouts. He's got the strong arm. He's got solid accuracy downfield. There are things with his mechanics that they could coach up and to get him better accurate in terms of being able to to get the ball, throw the receivers open, hitting them in stride, allowing them to go ahead and utilize their abilities to get some yards after the catch. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, definitely a guy with high upside. A guy for me, it was more of a boomer bust pick. If he's a boom, he's like I said, could be a Pro Bowler. So a little bit of a gamble, but one that I wouldn't have done. But I try to tell my GM not to do it, but he went ahead and do it. But if this pick works out, he's going to be the king of Chicago.
And so will I.
That's how I'm talking about you.
Oh, thank you. Neil, any final thoughts on the selection?
My thing coming into this draft is that we had to be aggressive, almost to a fault, and figure out a solution to his quarterback position. I too had Mac Jones ahead of Trey Lance on my board. Trey Lance was number 5, and it's not an indictment on Trey Lance as a player. I think that he already possesses extremely fluid mechanics. I talked a little bit about those earlier. I think that he has a cannon for an arm. He's got unbelievable athletic ability where he can turn from a quarterback to a running back in an instant, and make plays with his legs, and be a playmaker both with his arm and his legs at the same time. As big time traits that he has, he doesn't really need a whole lot of refinement. There's a lot of people out there in the media. They're going to talk about how he just doesn't quite have mechanically. I don't know if he's pretty good mechanically, guys. He might need a little tweak here or there, but he's pretty good mechanically, and he's shown that for 2 straight pro days now. He's a guy. He's electric, man. He's electric. Definitely a boomer bust guy, but if he booms, it's going to be a massive boom, man. It's going to be a sonic boom, and he's going to be one of the big timers, the big up and coming young guys in the league that everyone's going to look at and say, hey, we want to do what the Bears just did, right? So love the kid, love his mental makeup. Comes from a football family. It's in his blood. The kid's a film junkie. He learns extremely well. He came from a program that, as I was talking about earlier, is essentially the Alabama of FCS, right? So in terms of culture, Ted Thompson wants to talk about culture. In terms of culture, he brings something that the locker room doesn't have, which is a culture of winning, right? He's come from a program that has been doing nothing but winning and national championships at that for 20 years. And when he has that kind of culture around him, that kind of support from his coaching staff, that kind of experience, he knows how to do it. He's been doing it. He's been around people that have done it. That's invaluable sort of intangible stuff that doesn't get talked about a lot, but that's invaluable sort of intangible stuff you can infuse into a locker room that is not used to winning at a high level. He's in intangibles wise, like the kid's off the charts from everything that I've been told. So I wanted Mac Jones because I think he fit inherently what the offense is supposed to be designed around. But ultimately, this kid, if he ends up being everything that we think he could be, is going to be so much better of a player than Mac Jones, I feel. Just a longer runway to get to the field, that's all.
I think we've changed Steven's mind. He says that I am the new king of Chicago. Thanks, guys.
But even in this mock scenario, you just kind of feel the enthusiasm that one of these 5 quarterbacks bringing them to the organization gives the fan base, right? You have a future now. You have something you can look forward to developing. The Trubisky experiment is gone. It's done. If you go into this season, if the Bears don't do what you did tonight, Aldo, and make a bold move for their future and go get one of these quarterbacks, you're going to go into, I don't care who you pick at 20, I don't care who you pick the rest of the draft, you're going to go into with that that feeling of blah, if you will, for lack of a better word, just because you have Andy Dalton as your quarterback, that's not your future. Nick Foles is not your future. And you can't go anywhere in terms of championship, division titles, all that stuff, if you don't have that quarterback position sealed up. And hopefully with this bold move you did here, the Bears will follow suit tomorrow night and do something similar and go get one of these 5 quarterbacks.
It's got to be a bold move. This is the franchise that really the only way to avoid getting into a period of mediocrity that could last a decade is if you don't make a move like this. Ryan Pace tried to make it. Unfortunately, he just picked the wrong guy, and that's going to be on his epitaph Is that how you pronounce that word? Epitaph?
Epitaph.
And if he doesn't rectify that mistake with this upcoming draft, I truly, truly believe that any one of these five quarterbacks will be a good NFL quarterback. I do believe that the upside with Trey Lance is just slightly higher than Mac Jones. If I would have picked Mac Jones, or we would have stayed at 20 or traded to 12 or 8 to get Mac Jones, I would have been happy too. But there's just something special about what this kid could be, and so that's why I made that move.
I have a question for you. If it was between, say 49ers pick Mac Jones at 3, and it was between Justin Fields and Trey Lance, which way would you have gone? Justin
Fields.
Thank you, because I would have walked out.
That's why. That's exactly why. I didn't want to risk losing you. I mean, he shows up.
Looks good in the uniform.
Danny Sherman shows up.
Justin Fields, no matter what, guys. Justin Fields, no matter what.
Put a different number on there, and we'll be good.
That's right. Danny shows up to the show with the photograph. He goes, "Here's the picture." Because when you pick him, you could. I'm like, "What do you mean pick him? What are you talking about?" This has been a blast. It really has been a blast. Next year, we're going to make some modifications. We're going to have a week-long draft because we really need. You guys have done so much work, and I feel like we're kind of skimming over some of the evals. The good thing is that you will be able to share those evaluations tomorrow at 7 p.m. Central when John Buffone anchors the coverage of the first round. After every pick, he's going to turn it over to Danny and Neil, and they will give the real analysis of what's going on. And, of course, everything is going to be Bears-centric. So when a particular player is off the board, Neil and Danny will say how that impacts the Chicago Bears. It's going to be a great show. I'm going to work behind the scenes, so I will be here trying to get the latest news up as quickly as possible, trying to find some really good tape, highlights and stuff to share for the guys to react to. It's what I like doing best, and so I'm turning over this chair to a guy who is more than capable, a guy with broadcast experience, chops, John Buffone. So he's going to be great at it. I know how much our followers here at the Bar Room love John, and I'm anxious to see him work with Danny and Neil. Because that's something that is going to happen more frequently this year and into the future. So, guys, it's been a blast. It really has been a blast. Let's just go for one final comment here. Alex Sims says, hopefully Jimmy Garoppolo gets traded tomorrow so the Bears have someone else that wants a quarterback off the board. You guys are great, man. I love you guys in the chat room. I hope to see you here tomorrow. And, guys, my eternal appreciation. Great job.
Absolutely, brother.
Right.